And we should be live. All right. Well, hello everyone that has been waiting. Sorry that we're a little bit late. If everyone could just do me a favor and just let me know in the comments if the sound quality is okay. We want to make sure that we are sounding good for you guys. I know we had a little bit of issues last time with Ben, so... Hello, Samantha. I see Samantha's already in the chat taking care of people. Hello, baby. So let's see. We'll hopefully get somebody comment in just a moment. Adam, can you say something for me? Like, just let me know. Can you hear me?
Oh. Yeah, sorry. I had muted myself. Somebody else was in the office.
Oh, gotcha. No, you're good. Yeah, so somebody said horrible sound. Okay. Okay, they said it's good now. Loud and clear. Awesome. So we're good. All right. Well, everyone knows me, I feel like. I'm Andrew Reed with Mossy Creek Mushrooms, and with me I have Adam Cohen. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself and your farm?
Sure. So I'm Adam Cohen. I'm half the team at Texas Fungus Mushrooms. We're a small artisan mushroom farm in Dallas, Texas. We started January of 2019. We took over a 2,000 square foot warehouse. We built everything out from scratch, and we've gone from 30 pounds that first month in January to right now we're hitting about 450, 500 pounds a week. We are down to only growing about 9 different species, which is crazy, but it's fun. And yeah, I mean, we've made it through the pandemic, and our restaurants are coming back, and our farmers markets are still crazy, so things are going good. Things are going fun. It's a blast.
Good, man. I'm glad to hear that. So you said you went to that 2,000 square foot warehouse. Is that where you guys actually started off at?
So Jordan, my partner, actually started about a year before I met him. He was growing out of his house, out of his garage. Okay. His entire garage was a 1-car garage in a townhouse. That was his colonization, fruiting, and lab space. So it was, that was also where he made all of his bags and did all of his storage. So when I met him in 2018, I think he was hitting like 15 to 20 pounds a week and was really happy about that. But the short version of that is we met, just kind of hit it off, and that was probably June-ish of 2018. And by November, we were already making plans about actually partnering up and starting a farm. So we moved into this place January of 2019.
Nice. Okay, so what were you doing before that then?
I was a high school teacher for pretty much the last 20 years. I've taught 7th grade through seniors in high school. I've taught community college. I've taught pretty much every math, every science, agriculture that's available in high school. And then in college, I actually ran, for a short period of time, I ran the Controlled Environment Ag program, hydroponics, aquaponics, greenhouse cultivation at Santa Fe Community College in New Mexico. So it's been fun.
That's actually really cool. So let me ask you this then. So in high school, we had a building called Building 8. That's where we did all of our trades. And in that trade was all of our agricultural classes, and the really only I guess blue-collar course I took, given the chance to, was wildlife resource. Did you teach that one?
Wildlife resources, I'm certified to teach it. My school that I was teaching at didn't offer it, but I was certified to teach it.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we did a lot of fishery stuff, and that was something I was really excited about. That's something I've talked about a bit. Is like, I got my start in fisheries, which there's a saltwater hat. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
Oh yeah, so it's a weird story, but I quit college, and then went and just got a job at a fish hatchery here local, and it's one of the world's largest inland marine hatcheries, and they do
Okay.
clownfish, and we used to raise all the little, like, it was right about the time Nemo came out. We did all the clownfish and dories and the blue tangs and stuff, and anemones and coral, and we had eel-tailed catfish, which are a brackish waterfish. That was my favorite one to work with, but yeah, ever since high school days, that's fish have been kind of what got me into biology in the first place. So
Interesting. Actually, I went to Texas A&M, and my degrees are in fisheries biology and marine biology, and I'm actually a trained systematist for fish. Like I spent
cool.
5 years at A&M specializing in fish taxonomy. So heuristics, systematics, all of that.
That's awesome, man. I didn't know you were a fish guy too.
Yeah, far more than most people would like me to be. I still can identify pretty much any fish along the Texas coast to species by sight 20 years later. Not sure that's a cool thing, but it's a thing.
I think it's a cool thing. I think it's a very cool thing, but then again, I am a fish nerd, so. All right, well, I don't even. So after that tangent, I don't remember where we were going, but basically where you started off, and so yeah, how different is that for you? Like going from, I guess as a teacher, you had a pretty secure job, and then you go to mushrooms, and then you said 2018, which means that was, you got into it right hot and heavy right before COVID. So, and you said that you survived COVID. So, you want to give me a rundown of like what that was like for you?
So yeah, teaching is a pretty standard job. It's, you go to work, you do your job, you get a paycheck. Most teachers aren't in it for the money, and I certainly was one of those. I loved teaching. Honestly, after I started teaching in 2002, and honestly, the whole profession has changed dramatically in the last 20 some odd years, 19 years, and it's not what I started. There's a lot more paperwork, there's a lot more BS, and my actual ability to teach diminished. Just variety of reasons. So it wasn't as enjoyable as it was. I've always wanted to do something with farming. I had an aquaponic farm for a while. I did hydroponics for a while. And I was doing that while teaching, and I figured I was going to keep doing mushrooms while teaching as well. But I could never leave teaching to go do the farm because there wasn't really enough money in it to support me. So I started this with Jordan in January of 18, and during that first year, like I said, our first harvest, end of January, was like 30 pounds. And we thought we were king of the world. We thought it was great. But over the course of the next 11 months, by the end of the year, we were harvesting probably about 450 pounds a week by December. We were growing 4 types of oysters and lion's mane, and we were inking deals with resorts and such in our area for 300 pounds a week going to them. So I mean, we were doing great. So come January 2019 or January 2020, and things are going really good. We just signed with a resort, and interestingly enough, we started delivering to them the first week of February. We did a partial delivery the last week of January. We did full deliveries of 350 pounds a week the 4 weeks of February. And, we were selling everything we could grow and then some, and we still had 40% left to build out in the farm. And we thought it was great. And middle of February, I remember the day specifically, it was 2 days after Valentine's Day, I went to my boss and I turned in my resignation. I said, I'm not going to renew my contract. I'm going to go do the farm full time. And 2 weeks later, I watched as the restaurants got shut down nationwide, and I watched every single client we had disappear in 6 days. And And I went from having 550 pounds a week of mushrooms sold before they were harvested to having 550 pounds of mushrooms sitting in my cooler dying. So to say March was a little stressful is an understatement. But we pivoted. We had been in 2 farmers markets in Dallas. Pretty much all the markets are open about May through October. There's only 2 markets that are open year round. And so we were in one of the year round markets and one of the half season markets that had just opened. And in March, we got into 4 farmers markets. We ended up doing 10 markets last summer. And we had a little bit from restaurants and such, but we started doing kits. We started doing value-added salts. We started doing mushroom tinctures. We taught some classes. We did everything we could to bring things up. We added species because we realized at farmers market, if we just had oysters and lion's mane, then people would buy 2 boxes of mushrooms. But if we had oysters and lion's mane and king trumpets and maitake and shiitake and, all these other species, then they'd buy a box of this and a box of this and a box of this. And, we could actually make more revenue. So our total yields went down. We dropped down to about 200 pounds a week, but we were selling all retail. So it was double the price. So it balanced out. But no, since January this year, 2021, restaurants have been coming back online. We're doing about 150 pounds a week through farmers markets. We've got 7 that are open now, and we do the rest. 100 or 375, 300. I can't do math right now. It's been long. We're doing about 450, 500 pounds a week. So about 120 of that, 130 of that is to farmers markets. The rest is to restaurants. So
okay, and so you're how long were your restaurants down for?
So Texas allowed them to do like takeaway service, like carry out service. So a lot of restaurants stayed open and did carry out. They cut all their front of house staff. They cut their kitchen staff way down. They were just doing that. So most of the restaurants did that. Our orders went from like 30 pounds a week to like 3 pounds a week. So our sales were effectively nothing for restaurants for about 8 months. We might have done 50 pounds a week across 20 small restaurants.
Man, that would hurt for sure. I don't. So Tennessee must have not shut down as hard as you guys, or maybe we just didn't notice. I mean, we definitely. Loye Jack. We definitely had some, like, my online sales really covered me through a lot of COVID, but our restaurants never seemed to shut down as hard as a lot of other people's did. I was a little surprised about Texas. I thought Texas might have had been a little bit more open.
So what it was our governor didn't make a designation. Our governor said it's up to the county judge to decide. Mm-hmm. And a county judge for Dallas County, which is where the vast majority of our restaurants were, was real hardline about it. And he said, nope, everything's shut down 100%, and that's that. And truthfully, Dallas got hit pretty bad. So we had some really high case numbers and such, but the shutdown hit the Dallas-Fort Worth area really bad.
Ben was sneaking out for the day. So I can see that. So that kind of happened with Knoxville. Our mayor and everything else seemed like they closed down harder than the state was requiring, and they just recently kind of opened things back up to fairly normal. Though I'd say at that point most of the restaurants were behaving as if everything was normal. We had a couple of restaurants that had, I guess, a little bit more downtown. They were having to be a little bit more restrictive. So, but I can understand it. Like it was hard. We were a very similar space. Actually, Adam, I think looking at the chat, I think you and I are going to have to mute as we go.
Okay.
So, but we ended up having a problem where we signed the lease to the warehouse. We were moving from the basement to the warehouse and signed the lease, and then it was like a week later, all the restaurants shut down, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to survive this." And so it was stressful. But then our local sales picked up. Like, people heard that we were here, and we put a little mushroom tent right here at the intersection out in front of the shop, and like just roadside slinging mushrooms, for a little bit, just trying to keep things going the way they were. So I mean, I feel you. Like, it was really difficult, like swallowing that, taking the plunge while swallowing the risk of getting the keys to that warehouse and an extra rent. Because, I mean, we went from a combined household rent of like $500 that we split with the business to now that having that normally with nothing being produced out of it, and going to a place where, the rent here costs us it's $1,300 a month for a 6,000 square foot warehouse. And so it's like, you got that right when the pandemic hit. And it scared me. It scared me, definitely. I'm not really quite sure. Like, I don't even know. Like, it's kind of hard for me to even go back and like even re-feel that fear, just because I don't feel it now so much. But it was one of the more stressful years of my entire life. So now that you guys are through that, it sounds like you're back up to right about what your pre-COVID levels were, right? Okay. So with that being the case, do you guys have any expansion plans? Are you looking to stay where you're at for a while? Or yeah, okay, what's going
on? For the next 6 months to a year, I want to not do anything. I want to not build anything. I want to not replace any equipment. That's it. Oh no, I want 6 months where I don't have to do any upgrades, where I don't have to build anything else out. So back in January of this year, we actually built out our second fruiting room. We built out our cold room for our Maitake, King Trumpet, and actually that's where we're doing our lion's mane now. But we found a guy that was selling old walk-in cooler panels, and so we built the entire room out of walk-in cooler panels. And I got to tell you, next time I build a farm, forget this 2x4 and OSB and insulation crap. I'm going to spend more. I'm just going to get the walk-in cooler panels. They lock together, they seal up, they're water resistant, and they're insulated as all get out. It's amazing. I'm in Dallas, Texas, in a non-AC cooled warehouse. It's 88 degrees here today, and my warehouse is about 99 to 100 degrees inside. So it's hot. And I've got a 1.5 ton window unit AC that I have ducted into that cold room, and that cold room's at 65 degrees. It's freaking beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
We've all been taking turns going into the walk-in ourselves, like just cooling off, because it is so hot and muggy here. But I feel you, man. Those refrigerator panels, like how quickly this walk-in went up compared to the grow rooms. Like, I think you're right. For next time, I may spend just a little bit more money. But I mean, even then, these panels, like, if you can pick up from any kind of farm that's like deciding they're selling out or whatever. I mean, we picked up the panels and the HVAC equipment, I think, for about $500 for it. And the panels are used everywhere. So I may go panels next time myself.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to cost you more in capital costs to buy them and get the room up, but you're going to recoup that cost, within a season, simply because your cooling costs are going to be less, your heating costs are going to be less during the winter, and it's going to be more stable. Which actually, here's something that maybe you can help me with. Maybe Ben would know how to do it. When you see him tomorrow. That window unit AC, it's got a little thermocouple, thermo sensor. It's about 22 inches long. That's it, because it's only meant to fit right in front of that panel. I need to extend that about 12 feet so I can actually get that thermosensor into my fruiting room, and then I can actually have that unit turn on and off when the room hits the right temperature. But I can't figure out how to extend that thing. So
yeah, I think that there's a way to do it. I'm trying to remember. The Coolbot system gets around that somehow.
No, the Coolbot has a heater that overrides the on the AC, basically tricking it into thinking that the room is a lot warmer than it was, and so there's that. But I can't really spend. I mean, I bought my Coolbot 5 years ago for my aquaponic farm when the Coolbot was, $120. Now it's like $350, $400. It's some stupid amount.
Wow, I didn't realize that had gone up that much. Yeah, so
maybe
that sounds like a big
Wi-Fi
question. Because that HVAC is not something I'm very good at all, and it's not Ben's specialty either, though he knows a lot more about it than I do. But no, we've got an HVAC guy coming in next week to start installing for the 3 grow rooms and the incubation. And so even if we don't have that, I might be able to ask him and talk to him. But that does sound like a good question. Heck, I don't know, but for all we know, somebody in the chat will hey, he needs to do this, that kind of thing. So we'll have to check that out here in a little bit and just go back through the chat. But
somebody will have to answer somewhere.
Oh yeah, exactly. You'll be surprised, man, how many people will have random answers to things you want, just in the live chat. But speaking of aquaponics, it's interesting to hear you talk about that. You and I have talked about that before, so it's not surprising. But there's at least 3 other mushroom farmers I've met who are getting out of aquaponics and going into mushrooms. And here I am building an aquaponics room from going from mushrooms. So what am I missing and what am I doing wrong? Why should I not be doing that?
You're not doing anything wrong. It's not that. It just, I don't know. I'm a bit more jaded. I've done aquaponics for a long time. It works fun. Sorry, I muted myself.
I was going to say your sound went out.
Oh no, aquaponics is good. It's really good in a lot of ways, but I'm pretty jaded on it just because I've been around it. Business wise, I honestly would say that aquaponics is an iffy venture at best. Not because the system isn't good. Frankly, it has a better saleability, in my opinion, than soil farming, certainly than hydroponics. It's as my old professor at A&M said, it's sexy. It's got a good story to it. And I never had a problem selling my aquaponic lettuce. I sold heads of lettuce for $4 a head at farmers market, and I'd sell out faster than the guy selling them for $2. But when it comes, I know it's crazy. I was selling 300 head of lettuce a week at $4 a head. So it wasn't bad, I'll tell you that.
That doesn't sound bad at all.
Yeah, but that's all I was growing at the time. So I had a revenue of $1,200 a week from my farm, and that was it. So why did I...
Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound as good as mushrooms.
Yeah. So why did I go from aquaponics to mushrooms? When you're growing lettuce, you can grow 4 lettuce per square foot in a single level because they need light, and I can't stack them on top of each other. With mushrooms, I can have 1 12-pound bag per square foot, basically, but I can have as many shelves tall as my room is tall. So we've got 6 shelves in our grow room, so I can have 6 bags per square foot at a yield of somewhere between 2 and 3 pounds per bag first flush. And when I get $20 a pound or better retail at farmers market for mushrooms versus $4 a head for lettuce, I mean, it's not really complicated math to see why I'm doing this rather than growing lettuce.
Okay, so and what about the fish? Did you sell the fish or?
So we did. We started raising tilapia, and Texas actually gets just cold enough that tilapia will die if you don't heat the water, and heating water is super freaking expensive when apparently all you have is an electric heater. So definitely one thing I would recommend to you is get a rocket mass wood burning heater or get a gas heat exchange to heat the water, because electric sucks a lot. But we did tilapia for a while, and they worked all right. They grow fast. If you grow them right, they taste just like snapper. So they're great. They're a great tasting fish, good quality. Just have to not tell people it's tilapia because name recognition. But we went from that to channel catfish because we ended up using the fish more just as fertilizer source rather than trying to harvest, because towards the end of the farm, we had a 2,000 square foot greenhouse. We had 4 troughs that were 4 foot wide by 100 foot long. 100? Yeah, 100 foot long. So we had 400 foot of trough, and each one of those had, let's do math. 50 rafts with 18 to 36 plants per raft. So let's see, 36 times 5 is going to be 1,500. So, so about 1,500 plants per trough. So about 6,000 plants in the greenhouse.
Okay.
And we were harvesting about 25% of that a week.
Okay.
But where's I going with that?
We were
to
talking
run
fish.
all
Yeah.
to run all. We had one 1,000 gallon fish tank. So you really don't need a whole lot of fish to grow a whole lot of plants.
So I've actually noticed that myself. I have a backyard system that I've shown a video a couple of times. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's literally just full of goldfish, and that's because on my back porch I wanted something pretty that I could see. And then in the top we have a settling tank, and then our 2 trays. And on those 2 trays, I grow watercress in one tray, and then water spinach. And then by the time the summer comes around, that water spinach is in both trays. And I mean, that water spinach will grow like 4 inches a day. And I'm covered up in greens off of a few goldfish that have I feed a tiny amount, and they just usually, it's like they eat the algae and stuff in the water more than pretty much anything. So it's surprising to me how much plant mass you can grow on a tiny amount of fish, and that's something that I've seen as a flaw of aquaponics for a while. Is there's a lot of people who seem like they're going to make money off the fish, and it's like you're not actually using that much fish, and you're not going to be making. Most of the fish people use are kind of low value fish. So now,
with my background, I identified a half dozen different types of fish that you could raise, that you could actually make some pretty decent money on. There's one, we can't legally grow it in Texas, but I'm pretty sure you could in Tennessee, Barramundi. And they grow fast, they eat pretty much anything, and here in Texas at least, they're an $18 to $20 per pound fish. So, and they're a pretty good one. Another one that I found,
and that means since we're a landlocked state, so anything seafood or freshwater fish or anything, it's always more expensive here than if it's fresh. Then so I mean, like, you're probably going to get really good money off something like that. I can see that. I've never had barramundi either.
It's a white fish, real solid texture. It's really good. There's a couple others. There's some cichlids that are both in the aquarium trade as well as the food fish trade. So they work back and forth. But I told people a lot of times that one of the best things to do is to raise koi, because you can buy a little ornamental garden koi that's 2-3 inches long for about $6, and you let it grow in your tank for a year or 2 years, and all of a sudden it's a foot long and it sells for about $150. You're never going to find the super expensive koi. Those are never actually like sent out. Those are culled by the fish farmers long before they ever get to people like you and I. But just a general koi that's a foot long will sell for $100. So that's a real easy way to get your money back for your feed and such that you do over the course of a year. But yeah, goldfish and koi they'll eat algae and scraps from the system as much as they will any feed you give them.
Well, I like that. And my idea was really to go into so I'm doing a lot of insect farm experimentation right now. So we're doing a lot of mealworms, superworms, dubia roaches, Madagascar hissing roaches. We're trying a bunch of different stuff. And I know it sounds gross. And we're trying to grow cordyceps on all of them. But what's cool is everything that we're trialing so far, and I'm picking forest-type species on purpose, like the mealworms and superworms are naturally log-living species. The darkwing beetle larvae, in nature, they eat rotten wood. Well, our blocks are made of rotten wood at this point, at the spit substrate level. So right now I'm feeding most of my insect larvae entirely off of mushroom grow waste. And I'm getting huge populations. So the next step is, okay, let's grow cordyceps on these bugs. And now we have bug-grown cordyceps, which is more natural anyways than the vegetarian grown. But also, my tilapia so far love superworms and mealworms. Just absolutely, I've got them where they're leaping out of the water now, trying to get, to my fingers constantly. So, so my hope is that I can kind of get into this, closed loop farm where I'm starting to bring in different disciplines. And I know that you can never get a closed loop system entirely. You're always going to have some importation and exportation. But especially if I'm pulling stuff to sell, I'm obviously going to have to import product. But if the import is spent mushroom substrate via, getting a cash crop off of it first, I feel like that's kind of a fun thing to do. So I'm going to take one of my grow rooms, recognizing that I'm going to forfeit some income off that third grow room, but turn it into an aquaponics room and do a lot more of this experimentation and see if I can get sellable products off of my mushroom grow waste. And if I can do that, then hopefully somebody's going to start an aquaponics farm somewhere, and then these guys with these mushroom blocks from our farms, we've got a place for our waste products to go, which is insects to fish and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just hoping. Plus, ADD, man.
Experimentation works. I mean, anything you can do to turn a waste stream into a revenue stream, that's the best thing. Years ago, I had the opportunity to go visit Growing Power up in Milwaukee, and I got to meet Will Allen, and I spoke with him and such. And what I saw when I was there was he had 60 different revenue streams going into that facility, and 60 revenue streams that had nothing to do with him teaching classes and doing seminars and doing speaking events. That was all separate. So he got paid by the city of Milwaukee to take in their compostable waste and compost it. So he got paid to take in the raw materials. Then he composted it, and he sold the compost back to the city of Milwaukee and to other people in the city. But the compost, he would actually run PEX line through it to heat water to heat his greenhouse, so he didn't have to expend actually pay to heat the water or anything in his greenhouse. He grew mushrooms. That was actually where I first learned about growing mushrooms. He did mushrooms on lime pasteurized straw in giant trash bags suspended in cattle panel cages from the roof of his greenhouse. And he was doing shiitake logs suspended over his tilapia tanks, and he dunked the logs in the tilapia water and then let them fruit out. Now that I know a little bit more about mushrooms,
that's awesome.
That probably wasn't a great idea, but he was doing it.
It's just awesome to see people try a bunch of different stuff, though, man. I mean, even though you're well, that's probably not the best thing, but how all this stuff ties together, people you're gonna get some crazy Russian ideas, just get to play with some really cool stuff. Okay, so I appreciate you, really, indulging my fish questions, even though I asked you to come on here about mushrooms. I know I changed the game up on you, but let's see. As far as your farm goes, you talked about basically what I'm calling. I don't know if this is proper terminology or not, but crop velocity. That's one of my things about mushrooms that I really liked from a beginning perspective instead of fish. Fish, you've got a lot of time long waits. You've got a lot of expensive tanks and everything else you've got to build up. It doesn't have to all be expensive. There are a way to cut some corners and stuff. But with mushrooms, it seemed like I plant a crop, I get a crop within a few weeks. And then if I'm planting that crop every week, like just the amount of how quick the crop cycle is just amazing. Not to mention the stackable crop volume. Like, so you're just getting a massive amount of just, like I said, what I would call crop velocity heading your way really quickly. I mean, it ramps up real fast. Especially if you're like purchasing spawn, and you don't have to, like, you can cut time off if you're purchasing that spawn. So I get where you're coming from, like why it can be such a bad not being able to stack the greens, like the lettuces and stuff. It's mushrooms are kind of perfect for industrial farming.
Yeah, they really are, because you can do so much in such a small space. It's amazing. It just, I mean, we're 2,000 square feet and we're pumping out 500 plus pounds ish a week, and the idea of that in such a small place is just crazy. I mean, we get people telling us all the time that do you really consider yourself a farm? Do you really think you're a real farm? It's like, yeah, of course we're a real farm. We're a non-traditional farm, but yeah, we're a real farm. And I got to say that question does irritate me a bit. I grow food. I'm a farm, and I do it professionally. When I first met you and you were growing out of your basement and you were killing it with the mushrooms, but you and I talked about this along that back then, as I can't talk. The fact that, yeah, don't laugh at me. It's been a long day. But you and I talked about that.
I'm laughing with you because I'm right there, man. Like, I literally I did 3 hiring interviews, like, right before. That's actually part of the reason why I was late coming to meet you, was I was in the middle of doing an interview to hire somebody. And then I've got, this week, we've got he's actually in the chat. We got a mentorship that has come in, so he's been with me, and so I've been trying to talk to him, and then talking to these guys I'm trying to hire, and then other people like customer. Like, I feel you. Like, I'm scattered as well. So please continue. Just know I'm not laughing at you.
Well, but we talked about that there were expenses that Jordan and I had in this facility that you didn't have where you were, because it was in your house, and the rent for the mushroom farm was tied up with the rent for your house and your living expenses. And right before this, we were talking about needing to shower multiple times a day when it gets hot, and you were there at your house, so you could just run upstairs and shower, and it was all good. With Jordan and I, we jumped into a space that was 100% commercial day one. We had rent, we had electric, we had internet, we had liability insurance, we had everything else that all had to be built out from a concrete shell of a box. And we've done a really, really good job, if I say so myself, in getting it done. We've managed to build to where we are with, the strength of our bootstraps and our redneck ingenuity. It can't be fixed with duct tape and baling wire. It probably shouldn't be fixed. So I mean, it's. I'm getting laughed at over here for saying that, but it's true.
Is it Jordan laughing at you?
Yeah, he's laughing at me.
Why is Jordan not in the interview?
I didn't get the invite.
He says you didn't invite him.
Well, I mean, it's because Jordan never talks to me. Jordan's always welcome. Hey, have him sit next to you and can join the interview. He doesn't have to either, but he can.
If Jordan jumps on the screen, then his good looking self is gonna make me look horrible.
What's up, man?
What's up,
How
Jordan?
You doing?
How you doing?
No, I'm actually about to go run out and go do a delivery. We got a restaurant that needs a hot shot, so yeah, just working, just busy, just like yourself. Yeah, right at it.
Take it easy, man. Then
Good
enjoy your
team,
delivery.
man.
Do what?
What's that?
I said enjoy your delivery. What'd you say?
I said take it easy, man. I got to run, but
Right.
I just got to print out the voice, so I'll be out.
All right, you too,
But
man.
we'll catch up sometime.
Sounds good. I
So,
sorry,
yeah.
Ben was standing over the, behind the computer, like laughing at me, and he was trying to feed me cookies just a little bit ago, and I was like, man, I've got to focus. Like, stop trying to feed me cookies.
Hey, but cookies are always worthwhile. You always got time for those.
That's fair. I should make more time for cookies.
My diet says I shouldn't, but I always make time. But no, I mean we're having fun. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of stress, but I'm very glad that we started out the way we did, just jumping in the deep end, full commercial, 100%. So it's given us a
you guys have
on
employees?
this. Yeah, we've got one full-time, one three-quarter time, and then I've got about 6 people that work farmers markets. And then we've got one of our chefs that he comes in one day a week to help us do stuff around here. So he works one day. Yeah, he's a cool
what are
guy.
your chefs?
Yep.
I like that.
And he works at one of our restaurant, or one of the restaurants that we serve. It's a great place. They actually work with kids in the juvenile justice system. It's called Cafe Momentum. Kids that are in the juvenile system. They are incarcerated. This is not like minor offenders, but I mean they were in juvenile jail. But they work in the restaurant. I think the internship's like 6 months or 9 months. But they learn front of house, they learn back of house, they actually learn skills to get a job as a cook, as a pastry chef, as a front of house server, such. They've got their own school to do GD programs and such. It's an absolute great program.
Graduate over 400 kids.
Yeah, and they graduate over 400 kids a year. So
wow,
that's
actually kind of impressive.
Sorry, I misspoke. They have graduated 400 kids over the period of the program. So and their recidivism rate is something like 1/8 that of the state. So it's super good. But
get some valuable skills. Like that's good.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And the restaurant industry, and just knowing who I know from restaurant industry, like I'm not gonna say all my chefs, but a lot of the kitchen staff I've met have histories, and it's like that's at least an industry. If you've got some sort of history, you can go into, and if you've already got the skills for it, then you get you get a little bargaining power. You also get to kind of I like that a lot. We've actually there's a place that we're talking to right now about possibly working with, where they work with especially single mothers who they go through, especially if they're first time offenders or whatever, and they've been caught for drugs. Instead of just taking their kids away from them and stuff, like this farm will if they're going to have their children taken away or whatever, they can all go live together on this farm, and it's a bunch of women who have been in these horrible situations or whatever, where they've been trapped in abuse and addiction, but they go and they work the farm and stuff, and they'll send them out to other farms and some restaurants and things like that to do some of this work. It gets them, I don't know, they were talking about, it's like what you were saying, what the recidivism rate? Is that how you say it?
Recidivism.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to be able to say it. Anyways, they rarely have people come back, is what I'm saying. And it was done by one of the judges. When I was growing up, he was judge, one of the main judges for Jeff County. And then whenever he got tired of seeing it all the time, so he retired and then started this whole operation. And it's been apparently phenomenally successful. So I've been thinking about working with it too. I'm glad to hear that you guys have had seen good results from programs like that.
Yeah, it's been a blast. So John works there. The chef that founded it, I've known Chad for a number of years, so that's kind of how we got in there. But John is a vegan chef, and so he does a lot of things with mushrooms, and he's really creative and inventive with it. But with working here, he does just general stuff around here. He asks to do the dirty, nasty jobs so that our employees don't have to. He's an awesome guy. But we've also hired him kind of on a contract basis to help us come up with recipes for our farmers markets and such. But also he's designing our value-added salts. check out there. Sorry, Jordan lost his hat.
You're all
but
good.
Yeah, it's a blast. So like with the salts and such, we're taking dried mushroom powder, and we've got a classic salt, a smoked salt, and a Togarashi salt. And I mean, we're selling them in 2-ounce packages, and I can't make enough every week to keep up with markets. And it's nuts. They're super well received. It's pretty cool.
I've been hearing a fair amount about the value-added salts. I've been intrigued, I'll say, but I've heard of people doing like the smoked salts, like doing mushroom powder, like smoked mushroom powder with the smoked salts, and doing all kinds of combinations. I've really enjoyed seeing what all they're doing. So, I know, like, oh, you disappeared on me. Oh, okay, cool. So is that like the pink Himalayan stuff? And can't hear you.
Yeah, in the smoked, I've got oyster and lion's mane powder, but I've got smoked salt, smoked paprika, garlic, black pepper, and some red chili. So this is a 2-ounce little package. So that's all it is.
So is that like basically if I'm gonna grill a steak and I'm gonna rub it down, is that what I rub it with? Oh,
Yep.
That's,
Absolutely.
That's what I want.
But this is our absolute best seller. So this is our Togarashi. So this has oyster, shiitake, chestnut, and lion's mane powder in it. It's got nori seaweed. It's got black and white sesame seeds, red chili peppers, Szechuan peppercorns, some salt, some ground ginger, black pepper, and orange zest. It's literally every flavor other than sweet. This is
and
absolutely.
where do I order this from?
So it will. I'm actually not sure that I have it on the website for sale yet, but it will be on the website by this weekend. So if anybody wants to, and I'm going to shamelessly plug myself right now, Andrew, TexasFungus.com. Go ahead. They're $5 for a package, and I can ship them out same day pretty much. So
yeah, man, I'll definitely grab one. You might maybe just hold one back for me because sometimes when stuff gets mentioned on the channel, it sells out. So,
but Andrew, I put this on popcorn. It is out of this world. It's awesome.
Yeah, man, I'll sign me up for that. I'll take that stuff for sure.
I know.
Do it, and maybe I'll get it, and then do a video on grilling a steak with it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Pretty cool.
Well, cool. So I like this value-added side of things. Is this is this something that came out of COVID? Because I know you mentioned some of this stuff as far as food goes.
So yeah, when COVID happened and we lost all of our restaurants, well, I mean, it's not just you can stop making the bags at that point, but you still got all the bags in colonization that are training on through. Now, luckily, we were growing all oysters and lion's mane, which are quick colonizers.
Yep.
But when we lost all of our restaurants, we still had, 2-3 weeks worth of bags that were made, and they were going to come through no matter what. We didn't have enough cold storage to hold them. So we bought ourselves an Excalibur dehydrator, and we just started drying mushrooms. I built a solar dehydrator outside. We took, I think we took 200 pounds of mushrooms down to one of our chefs and just said, here, do something with them. If you sell anything, give us 50%. She said, okay. So we did that. And another one of our chefs was really bored, but he still had to go down to his restaurant and, take care of stuff. So we brought him, 50 pounds of mushrooms every 3-4 days, and he just used the ovens at his restaurant, and he dried a whole bunch for us. So we ended up we did that because we had all of this product that we couldn't sell. We didn't have a channel to get rid of it, but we couldn't bring ourselves to dump it in the dumpster. And so, I mean, I eat a lot of mushrooms, but I can't eat 400 pounds of mushrooms in a week. So
I feel you there, man. So we accidentally grew out like about 200 pounds more. When we opened up the new grow room, we just fully stocked it. And I was like, we overshot by about 200 pounds on a week, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so we dumped it, and I'd been telling my crew, like, if you've got extra mushrooms, like bad mushrooms or mushrooms that are like a box or two that's looking kind of bad, just throw them out, because the ducks eat the mushrooms like crazy. Well, that's great, but they don't eat 200 pounds of mushrooms when you just throw them out there. I will tell you that because I've definitely got kind of like a smell that I've got to go take care of by this weekend that's coming from 200 pounds of dumped mushrooms. And silly old me did not think to build any more dehydrator space than what, we got a little one that we use regularly, but we've only got it for a box or two. It's not for 200 pounds. So yeah, I feel you there. I've recently had this experience, and it pained me to throw this stuff away.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was it. I mean, when COVID first hit, like one of the thing that I absolutely love about the chef community and the restaurant community in Dallas, when that happened and everybody went home and all of this, Dallas and Fort Worth, for that matter, have a very large percentage of the school populations that are on free and reduced lunch, and those kids pretty much get 2 meals a day paid for by the school. Well, when schools got shut down along with the restaurants and all the kids went home, that meant those kids didn't get meals. And so it was one of those unintended consequences. It got fixed, but there was about 3 weeks to a month there where people were out of food. So a lot of the restaurants just started preparing meals. They found funds to take the food that they had in their walk-ins for regular service, and they started making prepared meals that they could then give to all of these kids that needed food. So one of our chefs in Fort Worth, a couple of our chefs in Dallas, we were bringing 50 pounds to this chef, 100 pounds to that chef, and just donating that so that they could make meals. And so we did that. We dried a bunch. All of the tinctures that I have here, we got into tinctures for the same reason, because we had all this dried mushroom that, what are we going to do with it? So we researched how to make tinctures, and we started making tinctures, and we started with lion's mane, and now I've got 6 different individual tinctures, and I've got 3 blends, and it's crazy. But
I feel you there, man. I started brewing with mushrooms because I had extra, and so we started making like wines and things like that. So it's not quite tinctures. Well, maybe we'll call them pre-tinctures or tinctures. I don't know, but I've enjoyed it. Like right now, I'm working on making a gnocchi wine, and so we'll see how that goes. Like it smells really fruity, man. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm really excited about it. So we'll see. But I like that. I even saw that you had a chaga behind you. Yeah, that right there.
Yeah, so the tinctures that we do, we got chaga and turkey tail that were foraged. The chaga came from Pennsylvania. The turkey tail came from Illinois. We got a sample of cordyceps fruits from somebody that we're hopefully going to be working with to get some LC from and such. So cordyceps is one of the ones that's on the dock to be grown this year, but we're dialing that back, and that's going to be once we get everything else kind of running somewhat on rails. But so I've got those 3. Then we've got lion's mane, maitake, and reishi. So we do about 2 batches of reishi a year, and we just grow it in the bags, and then we'll dry up like 60, 70 pounds of reishi, and that gets us through the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's what we do with our reishi crop too. Is we'll grow it out 2 to 3 times a year, and that basically lasts us the whole year because we've got the bandsaw down in the shop. We'll clean that bandsaw out and then just cut everything up with a bandsaw, and then you can tincture it or powder it. Mainly, we just sell the strips. So if we're growing it in antler form, that's easy enough. You just go cut it to where the antlers are removed, and then put them in like quarter ounce or like 4 ounce bags or whatever. And then if it's the conchs,
what do you sell it for? See, I want to sell just reishi powder, but I can't figure out a decent price.
I won't touch powder because we
not
recently,
powder, like just ground.
Oh, gotcha. I was gonna say because the powder you got to be careful with.
Right.
It'll have some sometimes what is it it'll look like mushroom poisoning, like a mushroom poisoning case or something like that with the powder. There was a guy that was hospitalized here in Knoxville for it. Weird stuff. But he was taking it in capsules, raw powder, and it needs to be cooked. So when we dry reishi, we dry it at a high temp.
Yep.
So if you're doing that, you're probably fine even with the powder. But I kind of stay away from it. But we'll do it in strips and stuff, and when we sell it, we'll sell it for it comes out $90 a pound dry, and then so what does that come out to for quarter pound bag? So 90 divided by 4. I can't do math today.
$22.50.
Yeah, so it's about it's like $22.50. I think when we do it at the quarter pound level, it's $25 a quarter pound. So that comes out to $100 a pound, but we sell more of it by the pound than about anywhere else. And if it's the conchs, we'll cut them into strips. So we'll just take them to that bandsaw and just you can put your rail on one side and then just cut them in the exact same size or same thickness strips, and then people can take those and crunch them up, or they can powder them or do whatever they want with them, and you can sell that for $90 a pound, and I don't move it all at once. We move it a little bit over the year, but I mean, you grow it 3 times and then just have it pre-packed.
Right, and that's the beauty of having a dried product, is that it can sit on a shelf, and it's not like our mushrooms that once they go in the cooler, you've got 7 days to be able to sell it if you're lucky.
Right.
If it's pink oysters, you've got 36 hours. Whatever.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll grow pink oyster for the pictures. Or for Valentine's Day, we'll do 1 pink cluster in every chef's box for Valentine's Day.
But even still, when you cook a pink oyster, it turns a dingy gray. It doesn't even keep the color. At least gold oysters keep the color, Pink oysters have no shelf life.
Nope.
When they turn, that is the nastiest smell I've pretty much ever smelled, other than that funky metabolite whatnot that happens in the lion's mane bags. Other than that, pink oyster is the worst smell there is.
Are you talking in the lion's mane? Are you talking about that black sludgy stuff?
No, not the black sludge. The yellow green,
the yellow foamy stuff.
Yeah, it's like soap. It foams up like soap. Have you figured out what causes that? I
have cultured it 4 times now. When I'll go in there and I'll do a swab and then I'll culture it. So I'm doing a whole series right now. This is what got me started on it. Actually, what got me started on this series was that foamy metabolite stuff, because Samantha, it dribbled on the floor. And then Samantha went through with the pressure washer and cleaned it up. Or maybe it was, and wherever that stuff had been sitting on the floor, it foamed up, and then it was clean. It was so clean, the floor was spotless. She's like, you have got to figure out what this is. This is a new cleaning product, and it's obviously all natural. So,
yes, it does clean, and yes, it does that, but it smells. It smells worse than cat pee.
Yeah.
It's cat pee and vomit mixed together. It's the worst smell ever.
I will say that I think Neurospora stinks worse. I don't like Neurospora even. That
I don't know. We've seen Neurospora in a couple of bags, and those get taken to the dumpster on the far side of the property and burned. They're gone. As soon as we see it, it's gone.
Yeah, we as soon as we see a Neurospora, it gets tossed out. You stop what you're doing, you glove up, you take that stuff out. We don't mess around with Neurospora either. Ever since I saw what happened to TR and Joey Schlegel up at Wind River, no way am I ever having that happen if I can help it. But I went in and did swabs, and right now in Petri dishes, I'm growing Trichoderma and Neurospora and that stuff that came off there. I'm doing a bunch of different molds. I'm doing I'm trying to do a contamination series for videos, and so it kind of scares me growing contaminants, but on purpose. But I've been very careful with them and been putting them in a homemade biosafety cabinet, and it's been working out well. But as far as I'll tell you, you haven't lived until you made a liquid culture of Neurospora and seen that shit take over like 24 hours. It's crazy. but this,
I'm absolutely quite good with not ever experiencing that or observing it. Nope, I'm good. I'll watch your video.
That's fair, because dumping out that jar of the Neurospora smelled like the most rotten egg smell I have ever smelled my entire life. Yeah, it was so gross. But that stuff that I went and took a swab of at Samantha's behest grew into a mold. It's in and I've cultured it 4 different times. It's always the same mold, and I don't know it. I'm wanting to send it off and have it identified. So I've got to figure out what's a good lab to identify molds. And it may be UT, University of Tennessee, has a mycology program, and I may just call them and see if I can take it up and have them identify it. But it's always a mold, and the question to me is it a mold that just happens to be present in some sort of metabolite or bacterial contamination? And if that's the case, why is the bacteria not growing on the dish? I don't know what it is, but like every time it turns out to be a mold. But I mean, you've seen it. It doesn't look like a mold. It looks like a bacteria or something. Did you catch it?
No. No, first time in 2.5 years we've got gnats around here, so I'm freaking irritated by it.
I'm thinking this year's going to be bad for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a bad year, I think. But no, I don't know. I have a suspicion, Jordan shares it as well, that lion's mane is one of those that actually grows better with a certain level of contamination, to the point where I actually think that lion's mane is it's not mycorrhizal, it's not like a morel or something that like that, but I think it is slightly symbiotic where it needs that certain
or maybe like it thrives in a polyculture.
Right.
Yeah.
Because about a year ago, we actually grew out our lion's mane strain on antibiotic plates, on a series of antibiotic plates, and we cleaned up the strain so it was just the lion's mane mycelium. And the strength of it, the speed at which it grew and colonized, the yield that we got was pitiful. It was absolutely pitiful. And we went back to the original strain, and yeah, it was dirty. Yeah, there's a lot of contaminant on it. Well, contaminant, but it grew better. It was stronger. It was more vigorous. And I really have this suspicion that it's not, that it's more symbiotic than it is parasitic contaminant. So I don't know.
So I've actually wondered that too, or if like, were you around when the CMGN was doing the corn smut trials? Okay, so that they did a Project Smut. Joey even had somebody do like a pinup girl riding a corn cob, you know, like the bomb riding or whatever. But they did Project Smut, and what they really figured out after trialing it over and over again was that it has a multi-phasic life cycle. So what happens is corn smut grows in almost a liquid form, like it looks bacterial, and it grows almost like monocellular, like yeast. But then at some point, when it reaches the next phase of its life cycle, it starts to form together and create hyphae. And then it starts to grow into an actual mycelium. And then when it goes back to the spore stage, it like liquefies and goes right back into this another phase of life. And I've wondered if hericiums are polycultures or if they're multi-phasic. And whenever like you get that really clean culture, are you just getting that one phase that is not, you know, like I don't know, but why is it like hericiums colonize blocks so fast? Like on a week, they're all the way through it.
Yeah, our coral tooth and our lion's mane strain, we probably let them go a day, maybe 2 longer than we should, but we can set our freaking watches on it. It's 10 days and they're done. Send them. And it's funny. I mean, they look like they're not colonized at all compared to oysters. I mean, compared to an oyster, it's like, no, that's got like another week, but it's like, no, that's, you know, when it gets that white layer on the top of the block, you know you're a day over.
Yeah.
But what we've found is that excessive temperature changes, it can handle warm temperatures, it can handle cold temperatures, but if the block goes from cold to warm, back to cold, back to warm, that's what triggers that really nasty metabolite. That it's when it gets really stressed out. So if it gets a lot of moisture, like if the bags get too wet, then it gets that. If they get temperatures, like really temperature stressed, then they get that. But no, we've had that. You mentioned that black metabolite. We've had that a couple of times on the lion's manes, but mostly we're getting that on our golds, and I'm not sure why.
So that's actually an interesting point too, because that black sludge, I rarely, if ever, see it on other oysters or chestnuts or anything like that. But I see it on gold oysters, and I see it in hericiums. And it whatever, like if you've got if it shows up on the top block and it starts going down, it'll drip down all of them, and it turns them all black. And it's like I can't figure out for the life of me what that black liquid is. And why is it that golds and hericiums are so sensitive to it? And why what I need to do as an experiment is just find some of that stuff the next time in the grow room, suck it up in a syringe, and start stabbing random other oysters with it, and just seeing can I purposely infect other oysters with this, or is it literally something that won't do? No, don't do that.
No, the grower in me is just like, no, don't purposely contaminate blocks, Andrew. That's a bad idea. No. But I mean that would be a good experiment, certainly. I agree.
Maybe I'll set up an experiment in a little mini biodome, right? Right here in the middle of the warehouse.
Well, make up some 6 pound, some 4 pound trial blocks. That would be the easiest way to do it. That's what we want to start doing. Is we're always trialing different things. We're trialing, do we do 3 slashes or 1 big X, or do we do a box with the flap? We let the flap go, or do we actually cut the full box open, or do we do 3 little X's, or do we do pinholes or whatnot? I mean, we're always.
What have you found works best for you?
Well, it depends on the mushroom species, and that's what we're figuring out. Is we're trying to figure out how to get the best yield for each species. So with our facility, with the volume of blocks that we're doing, we can't really do second flush, which that sucks. And I really am not happy about that, but it's one of those, given our space, I can't really afford to use that square foot for a second flush block that's going to take 10 days when I can put a first flush block in that, and I'll get a harvest in 7 days. So it takes 10 days to second flush of a pound versus 7 days to get a first flush of 2.5 to 3 pounds.
Right.
So it kills me, and the gardeners that come and buy our spent blocks for their gardens, they love it because they break it up in their garden, and we constantly get emails of, hey, I harvested 2 pounds of mushrooms off those blocks you gave me. I forgot to break them up into my garden, and they just grew. So, I mean, I could probably harvest 50 pounds of mushrooms out of our horse trailer that holds our spent blocks right now, just today, just that are growing outside in 85, 90 degree temperature weather in Texas. I could probably go harvest 50 pounds.
So that's actually what we do is here at the shop, typically we sell everything that's grown indoors, and then we eat what comes out of the trailer.
That works. You doing family lunches for your staff over there?
We haven't in a little bit. I've been taking a little bit of time off, so I've been kind of skating, coming in and checking because it's I've been doing this for years, and then 2020 was so rough building out the warehouse and everything else that I mean, Samantha and I may have had 1 or 2 days off the entire 2020, so I took about a month off YouTube, and then for about the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've been coming in and working half days or, something like that. Just, I know, right? It's not even meant as a brag, man. I'm sorry.
I'm so jealous of you. I'm so jealous. I mean, I live an hour away from the farm, so that's 2 hours of driving that I do 5 days a week on the minimum. We don't have a delivery vehicle, so almost all the deliveries are in my personal vehicle. And then we do 7 markets. So that means that one weekend I work, the next weekend Jordan works. So we are so excited right now that we're on a schedule right now where we get 2 days off and 12 days on. Because that's the most time off on a regular basis that we've had in, I don't know, since we started. So, that's the life of being an entrepreneur. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to start a small farm, you're not getting time off. You're not working 40 hours a week. When my guys go home, when they've hit their 8 hours a day, okay, now I get to finish the other 4 hours worth of work that goes on. 3 weeks ago, we had the bright idea of starting at 7 a.m. in the morning because it's cooler. And, okay, the idea was we start at 7 a.m. and, we work 8 hours, we're off at 2 o'clock. I'm still here till 5 every day. I just added an hour to my workday. Why? And it's not like we get anything more done. It takes us an hour longer to do our work. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's funny how that kind of works out, man. I've seen that. And I will say that Ben Erickson, the Man of War, has been giving me such shit when I come in because, so Ben quit his full-time job in October to start Man of War. And then they signed the paperwork January or February is when they actually had that. They were selling baggers, but they were selling baggers under Mossy Creek Mushrooms umbrella while they were getting their own business started. Well, now they have that, and they're working with their distributor distributing the baggers and everything. But Ben's like no employees, just him and his business partner down there, and they're working long hours. And Ben gets Thursdays off for a family day, and then has the tenacity to come and give me shit because I'm skating in at noon every day. And he's like, "Oh, I wish I didn't have to work." And I'm like, "Man, I started my business 2012. If you're you got to take some time off sometime. If you don't, that's the whole goal at least is to get your business to a point where you can take." And Ben's like, "I know, I'm just so jealous right now." But
yeah, that's absolutely it. And I'm looking forward, 4, 5, 6 years, and I tell this to Jordan all the time that my single focus goal is to make my presence here unnecessary.
Yep.
Every single thing that I do, I want to be able to hire somebody else to do it. Because I read a book a long time ago. You and I traded entrepreneurial books and such back and forth a couple years back. But one of the ones that I read, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it right now that I'm trying to talk about it. But he talks about his dad trying to sell his business, but his dad did ornamental ironwork. And he had this great business and made all this money, but he did all the work himself. So when he tried to sell his business, it was worth nothing to somebody else because the guy selling it did all of the work. There was no value in the business. A business only has value to somebody else as a sale if you as the owner are absolutely irrelevant and are not needed. So my goal is to...
because that's been my goal for a little bit too, is I phrased it differently. I've been phrasing it as I want to get my business to where it's sellable, but it's the exact same thing. I'm trying, how do I make myself irrelevant? And it's not because I don't love the business or want to be a part of the business or even do things with it every day, but it's just that as a business owner, that's about the only way you get a life is if you make yourself unnecessary. And then you get to start thinking about all the future forward things. Oh, I'm starting to stack up employees. One of these days, I'm really going to have to start paying attention to what we've skated by with this for a long time, but if we have an electrician come in to do an inspection of stuff, we're screwed. So maybe as the owner, I ought to fix that problem. Like, that's when stuff starts getting fixed and starts, like, because you're unnecessary, now you get to see all the problems, and you got to actually work on the problems and do stuff like think about the future, like what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. Just because you're unnecessary doesn't mean that you are not needed. It just means that you can actually then spend your day focusing on the things that are going to move the business to the next plateau, to the next level, to the next deal, the next expansion. Yeah. You know, when I'm out there scrubbing floors or wiping down mushroom racks or, you know, toting bags to the dumpster, you know, that's not the best use of my time as the owner. You know, when Jordan is in there inoculating bags for 4 hours, you know, that's, on one hand, that is exactly what the owner should be doing, because that's like the mission critical thing. If the bags get inoculated poorly, then, you know, there goes everything else. But at the same point, that's also a task that should be taught to somebody reliable, certainly, but that needs to be taught to somebody else so that Jordan can spend his days, you know, talking to chefs and getting us new clients. I mean, Jordan's the reason that we have, you know, our 4 biggest clients. In his relationship with those chefs, his ability to follow through on those and set everything up. But
so if he's spending his time actually making relationships, then that means the business can grow. And if you've got people that are plugged into those positions where you were necessary, well, now they've got an even more secure income. They've got a more secure job. Plus, they're getting more people coming into work, which means that typically the guys who have been with you the longest get to, you know, float their way up to. There's nowhere for them to go if you don't get out of the way. Like, so you don't want to get like lock people into a dead end job. So, I mean, like, I get completely what you're saying. Like, that makes so much sense to me. Though I will tell you, Ben Erickson had to talk me into that. I did not want to let go of the lab work. I thought it was the romantic thing, was me working in the lab. That was where all the romance was. And, you know, like, man, I was, in one way I get where I was coming from still, but it's like, I still get to do lab work. I do lab work whenever I want. So I still get to do that romantic part. I'm just, Jackie now knows how to do it. And when it comes to inoculating blocks, it took me a long time before I was willing to let people start learning that. But now it's like, almost on day one. The first day anybody works for me, their first day is spent opening blocks in the trailer. And if they survive that, then the next day they come into work, they learn shaking bags and inoculating bags. That's like the first skill you learn in my job now is production work. And that's including running the bagging machine, folding bags, putting them in the steamer, and then inoculating and shaking. And like they get a crash course of that, and then on some days we'll get it where all they do is inoculation, all they do is shaking, and like I've been trying to break that up and cross train everybody as much as possible, and it's paid off, though it's been annoying.
Yeah, I mean we only have 2, really, I guess 3 employees, counting John that comes in 1 day a week. But I mean everybody does everything. It's just we have here's the tasks that need to be done during the day, and it's just, okay, when you get done with your task, what's the next one on the list? That's what you get to do. Yep. We're working on automating stuff. Like, it's just little things about this space that we didn't know were going to be a problem when we started, or where we spend a lot of our time. Like, we don't have floor drains. So all the water from our humidifiers, we shop vac every day. An hour and a half
me too,
every day.
We're still on that too.
Well, so I found a really, really cool thing. I'll see if I can go grab the box here in a second. But it's called an AC condensate pump. It's a pump that is meant to be mounted on the wall so that you plumb the drain line of the AC into that pump. But then the pump has a float switch on it that it's not a float switch, it's an automatic float sensor or automatic level sensor, whatever. But it will then pump that water wherever you need it to go. So it's meant for restaurants when you have a walk-in on an interior wall away from the floor drain in the kitchen. So you put that thing on that, you run the condensate into it, and then you pump it up over the ceiling and then down the wall where the floor drain is. So I took that pump and I hacked it, and I sanded off the feet that were on it, and I cut a hole in the bottom, and I added some extra wires to it and this and that and such. But now it's sitting on the floor of my fruiting room, and it's pumping all the water out on its own. We don't have to do it.
It's funny that you talk about that, man, because literally while I was on the video earlier and Ben was working behind me, he was installing one of those pumps.
Awesome. But I mean, that has saved us just this week since I installed it. It's saved us about 6 hours worth of labor, because I mean, we've gone through 4 shop vacs in a year and a half. Just because we wear the wheels off of them. Yeah. We break the wheels off the damn thing because it goes back and forth so many times. But yeah, for $85, I'm going to buy 3 more of those. One for each grow room, one for, because we've got little mini split ACs and this and that all over this place. And a lot of times I can't run that water outside. So that's going to help us. But it's just little things. It's trying to find that efficiency. But when I get caught in the weeds, making bags and loading the sterilizer and shaking bags and all of this, I can't really look at those things that are going to save us, hours of labor a week. Actually, let me ask you a question. When it comes to deliveries, do you still do deliveries, or do you have an employee that does deliveries?
Samantha does them, so no employees. Samantha does them. It's but she does them twice a week, and every Tuesday and Friday. And what we've done is just built a route that she'll follow, and it's kind of a long day. We've been looking at hiring somebody for it, and it's just slightly more complicated than hiring somebody, because that you got to make sure that they're licensed, insured, and like you could do it like a Domino's Pizza kind of guy where they carry their own insurance and all that kind of stuff, or do we want to get a company vehicle and then have them drive the company vehicle? We're just not sure what direction we wanted to go yet on that. I really think that I want the company vehicle because then I get better control over the quality of the product being delivered. And there are very few things that I care about having like direct hardcore control of. The quality of the mushrooms ending up at the chef's hands is the one thing I want to keep.
I was curious what your response was going to be, and that's exactly our philosophy as well. Doing deliveries, it's probably it's simultaneously my least favorite task every week and my most favorite task every week, because that's how I keep a pulse on our chefs, on our restaurants, on how they're doing. Hey, by the way, we've got this. We're going to have a lot of this type of mushroom next week. Have you ever tried that? Let me bring you a sample. And it just, that's the thing of, that will probably be the very last task that we move ourselves out of, because in so many ways that's the mission critical thing, because that's where this product that we've spent all of our time and effort and energy to build this amazing, beautiful, perfect product, and I'm handing it off. I'm handing it to the chef. Yeah. I want to know that when I hand it to the chef, I know what the expectation is. I know what I want the mushrooms to look like. And if it doesn't look like that, then I need to be able to explain that. It terrifies me at night that I'm going to have an employee just, here's your mushrooms, thanks, sign this. And, just piss off a chef, and all of a sudden I lose, a $500 a week client.
So Samantha and I tried letting go of some control on that one time, and the one time we did it, we lost the chef, and we've not had him back. And so, and it was like, and now thankfully he wasn't like, he was a picky chef. He was a little difficult to deal with. He wasn't my favorite on that. He'd only order like a case a week. So it wasn't like a huge loss. But I mean, you got to think, like, if you're selling, I don't know what your prices are or anything like that, but like if I'm doing an $80 case of mushrooms to a chef once a week, and what is it? That's almost $5,000 worth of income a year. So that means that losing that one chef who was stably buying one case a week, having lost that chef, lost me about $5,000 in a year. Now, granted, I have other chefs on waiting lists, so it made me, it was fine. I was able to go and recoup, go find somebody else to take those mushrooms. But it was, Samantha and I were like, oh, they know plenty. Let's not double check. And that's really what it was. We still delivered. We just didn't double check. So got there, he opened the box, and he's just like, oh. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so ashamed I gave this guy these mushrooms. And, you can try to explain it all you want, but you didn't double check. It's on you. Like that, and then you're right. I feel you. And that's something that Samantha and I've talked about. That'll be the last job that we, that's the last job we'll give up is delivery.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of clients that get one case of mushrooms a week in that $80 to $90 price range. But the ones that I sweat about, I have one restaurant. They're a super high volume restaurant, but I deliver basically 100 pounds of mushrooms to them twice a week.
Yep.
And it's just like it keeps me up at night. Like, am I going to accidentally say something wrong and piss off the head chef or this or that? Or, every time I walk in and I'm pushing 10 cases of mushrooms, 10 to 12 cases of mushrooms on my little cart, and I'm going around corners in that tiny little kitchen and there's cooks running back and forth. Every time I go in there, I'm terrified that somebody's going to bump in the cart and all those mushrooms are just going to topple over. And it's just going to be like, oh, well, there went $1,000. Let me go get you another order, chef. I'll be right back. Don't
worry, chef. I'll eat that 1,000. Let me get you another.
Well, I mean, if that happens, you can't be like, well, there's your mushrooms. Pay for them. It's like, yes, chef, I'll get you another one.
That's exactly what you got to do. Yeah, until it's in their hands, it's your fault. Yeah, and so we've got a resort that takes somewhere between 100 and 200 pounds a week from us. I mean, it's 10 to 20 cases. So, and I mean that's a good client to have, and that's every week. And if I ever have specialties, which I sell my specialty cases for 120, if I do a specialty case to them, they've just told me like, hey, if you've got, I was like, hey man, I've got a gnocchi, you want that? And he's like, you don't even have to ask me. If you've got something new, just tack on a couple of boxes. And I was like, oh my gosh, and that's not to his restaurant, that's to every restaurant in that resort. And so you're talking about like a major client who represents, by the end of the year, about a third of my income sometimes. And you're right, I sweat. So I have lost sleep thinking I might lose that kind of client, so it can be rough.
For those clients, when you walk in the grow room and go, oh crap, those 30 bags should be ready to harvest today, but they're not going to be ready for 3 days. And okay, which chef am I going to piss off today? Am I going to piss off the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year client? Or am I going to piss off the $5,000 a year client? Because I'm pissing off somebody. I'm going to go that way.
Right. Yeah, and it kind of sucks because you don't want to run over all the other. Like I basically just try to spread the herd around. Like, sorry, chef, I was a little short on this. Sorry, chef, I got you a single case, not 3. Oh, sorry, chef. And like anyone who orders just one usually gets their one, but like. But like you're saying, you got to make that. Sometimes it's a hard choice you got to make.
We've got about 6 restaurants that are on a weekly standing order, and they pay generally day of delivery, but they're committed every week. They're going to get XYZ, and we have 3 basic boxes. We have a mixed oyster box. We have what we call a chef's mix box. That's half oysters, half specialty, just about. And then we have one that we call our premium box. Well, it's listed as our premium box. We call it the BAM box, BAM, Badass Mushrooms. So it is on the invoice. Yeah, but it's cool. I mean, it's the right box. It's the right name for it. But
I like that.
Yeah, it's good. But we have those 3 boxes, and that's what we do. So the BAM box is all specialties. The chef's mix is oysters and specialties, and then we have a mixed oyster box. But what we'll usually do is we don't have a whole lot of clients that get 10 pounds of oysters or 10 pounds of chestnuts or, mostly we steer people to the mixed box, which allows us to make up, well, the lion's mane didn't really harvest this week, so we'll just put in a little bit more other stuff or this or that. But when we've got a 10-pound order of lion's mane and I've got 6 pounds of lion's mane in the cooler, there's only so much I can do to stretch that out. So it gets frustrating. But
yeah, I
can
feel you, man. I've had to eat it before, man. Like, there was a time when Samantha and I had we went on vacation and we came back, and one of our employees had decided to, like, we told them that we're going to be on vacation. We'll be coming back this day. We'll do deliveries the next day. So just all the mushrooms you pick, throw them in the fridge. And for some reason, they decided to dump them, and it was like $2,000 worth of mushrooms, and you come back from vacation and you're like, hooray, I'm gonna because I had security cameras in my grow room, so I could check on them while I'm in vacation and stuff. So I was at the beach looking at my mushrooms, and I know it was so exciting. And I was like, yeah, this is gonna be a good crop. And I came back and it's just, yep, there's $2,000 worth of mushrooms in the compost pile. They were perfect the day before. And he's like, oh, I don't remember what he said. And we were like, oh shit, did we just not explain this clearly enough? Or but you got to eat it. What else are you going to do? You can't just get more mushrooms. So I hate eating it, but that's, as the business owner, that's your job, eating shit. So
yeah, that's and sometimes it's an employee. Sometimes you walk in and the AC on the walk-in cooler died overnight, and you walk in and the walk-in's at 85 degrees, and it's just like, what? Or sometimes you have an unexpected freeze across Texas, like we had in February, and we lose power and water for a week. And
man, I forgot about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we lost 500 blocks. We lost every block in both of our grow rooms. They froze. They froze solid because we lost power, and so power was restored to the farm within about 3 days, but the water line to the business park froze and busted. So we didn't have water for 12 days. So we had electricity. We could have run the humidifier if we had water, but since we didn't have water, we also couldn't make blocks and run the sterilizer. And, we were just kind of dead in the water. It's like, okay, we've got nothing. So we managed to get some blocks from another farm that had one of their orders canceled. So we got those blocks in, and we managed to get that up and running. Actually, TR was the one that helped us. Jordan got in his truck and drove from Dallas up to TR's place, picked up the blocks that had canceled from TR's order, and drove them back down. And we put them into the grow room just so we had something.
Yeah.
But it was, that sucked.
Yeah.
That sucked a lot.
Well, and thinking about where you guys are at, I think that's a further drive. So Samantha and I drove out to TR's place 2 or 3 years ago. I think you guys are actually further away than us. That was a pretty long ass drive, anyways. I think we were about, maybe it was 9 hours for us.
I think Jordan did that drive on his own. He left here at about 2:00 in the afternoon and drove up there. And he was intending just to sleep in his truck there at TR's place, load up the blocks at 8 in the morning when Sandra got there, and then drive back. We kind of forgot that it was February in Missouri or in Illinois, wherever he is.
Yeah.
And it was -2, and Jordan just had his nice little light jacket, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a hotel room because it was really cold."
What, did TR not have a extra sleeping bag for it? No. So when Samantha and I drove out there, somebody, we had a whole bunch of people getting together, And so we're up there, and somebody asked TR, okay, well, we've seen your operation and your new operation. They're about an hour away or something like that. So we drove to both places. And then we were like, okay, where do you live? Where do you stay? And he went, oh, that's easy. And he reaches like behind this couch that he's had just there in the op, pulls out a sleeping bag and went, right there. That's where I sleep. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, so you live at your op too. Just, but like, and we were talking about like how cold it gets, and he didn't have like central air or anything like that. And he's like, yeah, it's a 0 degree bag. I'm plenty warm. I was like, all right, yeah, that's fair.
Somehow I think that I could handle that. My wife, my daughter, my son, I don't think they would be quite as cool with that opportunity. Jordan's wife definitely would not be okay with that. You know, camping is one thing, but living at the farm, yeah, no. That'd be a big no.
It has a certain romantic appeal, I think, at some point, but like then you realize that mushroom farming is a factory. It's not really like a pretty farm with ducks and ponies and things like that. It's an industrial farm, and no matter how small you make it, it still has an industrial feel to it. So I get you. I get what you're saying. It's actually really nice having the mushroom op out of the house. Like, I'm really happy to have privacy again, because there was a time when I had employees in my basement farm, which meant that there, 5 days a week you don't have privacy. They're using the same bathrooms you are and everything else, and then your kids are leaving their dirty underwear like out in the bathroom, and your employees have to see that stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I mean, yeah, it's just it's so nice. It's so nice having them separate. Oh my gosh. Not that I didn't love it, and not that there weren't pluses like the combined rent, but oh my gosh. Well, let me ask you this, because I know that you said about 2 hours is what you had in you, so and we got a little bit of time. Okay, you're good. But I did want to ask you, like, you and I have talked back and forth quite a bit, so I kind of know some of your thoughts on some stuff. But like, what are your thoughts on the mushroom industry going forward? Like, I'm getting a lot of different answers from people when I ask this. Like, what do you see coming? Do you see plenty of space for a few more years? Do you see a lot of competition? Just tell me what you think, like, the next 3 or 4 years look like.
So I think the next 3 to 5 years are going to see, honestly, I think the pandemic is going to have accelerated the curve quite a bit, because, we're down the street basically. We're 20 miles away from Unicorn Bags. So I talk to Lou at Unicorn all the time, and they can't keep bags in stock. Everybody is ordering more bags, and there's a lot of new companies that are ordering, half a case here, a case there, and such. And then the bigger farms are ordering more. We, like ourselves, we went from getting one case every, 6 weeks to now we're getting a case about every 3 weeks. And we're going through a lot more, but some farms they went from getting a pallet of bags every 3 months. Now they're getting a pallet of bags a month. So the interest has gone up. We've talked to Eric Lohman up at Cap and Stem. We've talked to a bunch of other people that are doing kits and spawn and things like that. And just the demand has skyrocketed. Like just ourselves, our kits at Farmers Market, we make 15 kits a week, and we can't keep them in stock. They're always being bought. Yeah. So people are really interested in it. And during the pandemic, I think a lot of people started cooking. They started experimenting. They started figuring out how to do new things with new foods and this and that. And I think there's going to be an interest and a demand. So those two things, the time to learn how to grow mushrooms and to just become aware that, an average person can grow mushrooms, combined with the fact that people are actually cooking and eating a lot more gourmet food and such with, artisan mushrooms, the demand is going to just go straight upward. But I think we're going to see the same thing happen with mushrooms that happened with microgreens. 5 years ago, you saw everybody was talking about microgreens 5-8 years ago. Everybody was talking about microgreens. But if you did a YouTube search or you did a webpage search or whatever, you found like 1 or 2 people that were showing off their little rinky-dink, like total DIY microgreen setup. Now there's 15 different classes that you can take on how to make $1,500 a week by growing microgreens in your basement. Thank you, Curtis Stone. But don't get me wrong, I love the guy, but anyway, soapbox. But where we are
I would
now,
say my big problem with all those microgreens ones every time was that they always say make $100,000 a year, and it's like bullshit. You're not making $100,000 a year. That's your gross. That's not what you're making. That's not right. Like you're using a bigger number on purpose, even though it's not the correct number.
Yeah, but that's marketing. They're making $100,000 a year. They're totally truthful and honest in saying that. Now, what you need to ask is, okay, what is your net profit per year? Because I guarantee your net profit per year is like $5,000. Because microgreen seed is super expensive. And the containers and this and that and such, but anyway, tangent. But where microgreens were 5 years ago, and 5-8 years ago, if you had a soil farm or a hydroponic farm or whatever, could you make an extra $300, $400, $500, $1,000 a week growing microgreens? Absolutely. And it was a no-brainer because it was a simple thing to add into your farm. Yeah. It took an extra hour a week, and they sold for super high value. But now, every farm grows sunflower shoots and pea tendrils, and they grow amaranth, and they grow micro basil and micro cilantro, and we're at 7 farmers markets. There's 3 different microgreen farms. That's all they grow is microgreens. And across the 7 farmers markets, there's 3 different farms that their booth, that's all they do. And then there's also 4 other farms generally at every market that has 1 or 2 microgreens. So I bring that up because mushrooms are getting to that level of popularity. Yeah. 5 years ago, an artisan mushroom was a shiitake. Nobody had heard of chestnuts or nameko or enokis. Unless you were a super high-end chef or you were part of a culture that had those mushrooms already, you'd never heard of them. A shiitake or an oyster mushroom was like super like edgy and out there and this and that. It just, nobody had them. But now we have so much more interest, and we've seen 5 farms start up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the last year. And they're all making noise that they're going to, take over
mushroom farms.
Say what?
Like you're talking about like 5 other mushroom farms?
Mushroom farms, yeah. And, they're not anywhere near our size and scale, but they're here. They've got 1 restaurant or 2 restaurants, or they're in this one farmer's market or such. Dallas is weird when it comes to farmers markets. There's not like one primary farmers market because the Metroplex is so spread out. There's like 35 farmers markets a week across Dallas-Fort Worth. It's stupid.
Wow.
But there's 35 farmers markets, 30 maybe, but each one, you're going to make, like, we make between, I don't know. I don't know the number specifically, but, we sell probably 15 to 25 pounds of mushrooms at a market on a given day. That's pretty decent. It's not great, but we're in enough markets we can grind out a pretty decent segment of our revenue per year. But there's a big part of me that wants to get into every single market, to just have that toehold there and to be the mushroom guy, because then nobody else can come in and take that market share away from it. It's one of those that I kind of want to do that, but it's also way much more effort than I want to do, and I'm having enough trouble trying to staff 7 markets. I don't even want to try to think about trying to staff 35 in 2 days. That would be crazy. But I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more farms go up. I think we're going to see a lot of interest. And, you wrote this in the mycological warfare piece a couple years back, that what's going to happen is...
That was Ben, just FYI.
Oh, sorry. You had said that you and Ben and Sam had talked about it around the dinner table, and that was the outgrowth of those conversations. So, sorry, Ben.
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure I gave Ben credit, and he doesn't give me shit later. So, but you were saying that mycological warfare. What
in that piece? You said that prices are going to. We're going to get a lot more people into the industry, like producing, and then the price war is going to start, and the price is going to crash, and the people who have the efficiency, who've been in there for a while, and can weather that price crash, those are the ones that are going to make it through, and that's exactly what's going to happen. I saw it happen with aquaponic farms. It got super popular and super this and that and such, and everybody opened up an aquaponic farm, and guess what? 10 years later, almost every single one of those people that had one of the big farms is out of business. They've closed it down, moved on to do something else. And that's kind of what I'm doing with our farm right now is we're trying to figure out how we can get every single efficiency in place to get our cost of production as low as possible. And you and I have talked individually about specific prices and this and that, and I'm fully aware that I am in a bubble nationwide, and I get prices that are not the norm. And I'm okay with that. Now,
to be fair, though, I think that anybody in a larger city, and Dallas is a larger city, for sure. Do you know what your population is in Dallas?
I think the greater DFW area, Dallas, Fort Worth, and all of the other cities around, I want to say we're 9.5, right around 9 million. We're
to give
big.
You some perspective, the whole state of Tennessee has 9 million people in it. So there's a reason why you have those. I don't even know that it's a bubble, so to speak. It's just a combination of there being more people in a smaller area, and there being more competition for bringing resources in. And I think that if as prices fall, your prices will probably fall slower than mine.
Yeah. Oh, and that's probably true. But even compared to other major metro areas like Houston, New York, even compared to those areas, our prices are impressive. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have minimal competition right now, and I'd like to keep it that way as much as possible, of course. But
sorry, bro. I guess I have been working against that end for you.
I mean, the reality is at 2.5 years, we have a relationship with the big chefs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to the point where, honestly, we have chefs calling us now. We haven't gone out and done a cold call drop-off, dropping off a sample, in probably 8 months.
Same here, man, and that's even with opening another grow room. I mean, like I said, we had that surge, but beyond that, now we're back to selling every box we're creating, and we're no cold calls, no samples.
Yep.
And
if somebody calls and requests a sample, we'll bring it to them. We're happy to do that, but it's one of those, we're now going after the clients that are, 20, 30, 40 pounds a week. We're not really going after the clients that are, 5 pounds, 7 pounds a week. And that's not, personally, I think we should still go after those because their money is as good as anybody else's. But it's just, we have the ability to hit those bigger clients, and, we've got a wait list of, several 100 pounds that as soon as we can produce it, they're ready to start buying it. But
and I mean, that's it's the bang for your buck, right? If your buck is your time, then you can consolidate your value that you're extracting into a smaller amount of time, then you're going to do that. And that's what I've decided is that's why I'm not really worried about competition so much, because in fact, there was a guy that is selling at farmers markets up in Knoxville that came and bought blocks off me today. And I know there's a couple others that buy from me, and sell in the local area. And Even growing the massive amount of mushrooms that we're growing now compared to what we've ever grown, we've not run into each other yet. Like even in Knoxville, and Knoxville's a tiny little city compared to something like Dallas, or I mean, New York is another city. I think it's got like 9 million people in I think on one island, like they've got like 9 million people. So, and it's just like, I don't know. I will say, so Samantha started reading an article, and I need to see if she'll send it to me because I'd love to publish it to people, but it was going over there was a big mushroom boom in like the 60s and I guess 70s or whatever. And a lot of the bigger farms that are around now were from that last boom. There was a big boom, and you had like every town had a grower growing agaricus mushrooms, right? Like it just started happening everywhere. And then next thing you know, some of these farms start doing better than others, and they start buying out people. And it's like the people who got bought out, it's not like they're hurting any worse than not being bought out, you know? And so it actually ended up working out really well for everybody. But like Monterey's, I think Monterey's popularity came from back in then around the 70s, from that last mushroom boom. And some of the people up in, what's the square? Kennett Square?
Yeah, Kennett Square.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in Kennett Square came from like back there from the 70s, the old guard from the 70s, the 60s and 70s. And so I need to find that because it's very interesting because it's a very similar situation to what you're seeing now. And it's kind of cool to see all that stuff. But, sorry, I think I interrupted you actually. Okay.
No, I don't think so. I think I was kind of winding down. I think we're going to see the price, the overflow or the over influx of people into the industry. You know, we're going to see that probably within the next 2 to 4 years, I would guess, probably less than 5. And we're going to see a lot of the, you know, somebody's starting a little farm in their backyard, and they're going to grow, they're going to grow 15, 20 bags a week, and they're going to do this, and they're going to go to the farmer's market. I mean, just think of the big names that you see in the mushroom groups on Facebook. You know, the people that are posting all the time and all of this and such. I mean, there's all of a sudden there's 20 to 30 new people that are new within the last 6 months. You know, 6 months to a year certainly. And, you know, they're doing big stuff. I mean, they're doing 20, 30, 50 bags. They've got, you know, they're building troughs and they're building sterilizers and they're doing this and, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, for everybody that's doing that and promoting that and publishing that on YouTube and on Facebook, you know, there's 10 or 15 people that are keeping it quieter and not doing that. I mean, even in today's total social media blitz and all of this and such, but yeah, it's going to happen. And I know there's going to be competition in Dallas, and I'm not worried about it. We have the relationship with our clients. We have the credibility because we've been here for 2.5 years so far. Everybody else is just starting. Yeah. So we've got that, and you know we're going to grow. But in a city this size, there's probably 10,000 pounds a week of market availability. Yeah. You know. Like, honestly, our biggest competition right now is not anybody growing in the local area. We're competing with Mycopia and, you know, and such and Hokuto and such out of California because they're shipping to Benny Keith and Cisco and FreshPoint and all the major distributors that are selling to the grocery stores and all the restaurants. So our competition is those guys. Yeah. That's who's selling to our clients. So as people want local food, as they want something that's grown and harvested within 48 hours, you know, to the restaurant, there's going to be a demand locally, and we're not going to be able to cover it all. I would love to be able to, but right. If I had a 10,000 square foot facility today, and I was growing, and I was fully built out, and I was growing, you know, full to the gills, I still probably would have a wait list for mushrooms. You know, you've seen it. If you grow more, people will buy it, and then they're going to ask for more, and so you grow more. And
and one of the things I've been thinking about too is, like, I hadn't really thought of it early in the, back in my early days, but I just wanted to grow mushrooms. But then as I started getting into it, it's like, okay, well, some of these guys that are getting into it, that they approach me first, well, I'll sell them blocks. And now, I'm selling blocks, and all of a sudden I'm a block purveyor. Like, I didn't mean to be, but, and I'm not doing anything like TR's doing, like shipping across the country. So I think that it makes sense to me to make block making a little bit more centralized. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I've actually had a lot of vegetable farms buy mushroom blocks off me, and they're growing mushrooms kind of sporadically alongside their vegetables and everything they're also doing. And that makes a ton of sense to me. It's like those farms get to diversify. I still get to make an income off my specialty. But then beyond that, like I've really started experimenting with like maitake, and we're doing shiitake, chestnuts, black poplar. Excuse me, my voice is starting to crack. But my thought has always been, as guys move into oysters, I'm going to start moving on my way up to more complicated mushrooms. I mean, in China, man, they're growing like, are you familiar with the umbrella polypore? Takes 2 years to grow. And that's a crop they're growing in China. They take them, and what happens is you grow the mycelium out. For the first year, it's just forming sclerotia, and like a little tuber. And then the mycelium dies, and that tuber stays right there. So they take that tuber out, and they plant it in another like substrate. I think it's like a non-nutritive kind of substrate, like just basically a casing layer. And then it's got a year of rest, and then it fruits. And it comes like the mushroom fruits out of that tuber. And it's called the umbrella polypore. It's apparently one of the best tasting mushrooms ever. But you've got those, you've got cauliflower mushrooms that people are just now getting into. You've got the parasitic jellies where you have to grow a mushroom to then put a parasitic mushroom on to grow. Like, it gets ever more complicated, and we don't all have to stop at oysters or anything, which excites me, but it's so, like a tomato farmer isn't really competing with a broccoli farmer. I'd like to see the mushroom industry get to the point where a maitake grower isn't really competing with an oyster grower. I feel like right now they are. I feel like there's only so much money that's going to be spent on mushrooms right now, but as it gets bigger, I'm hoping that people start seeing the diversity and start to selecting for the dish rather than, I want mushrooms, so I'm going to select some type of mushroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, I mean, there's a lot of chefs that still look at, okay, if I want a specialty mushroom, I'm going to get an oyster, and they can get an oyster from one of the large agaricus farms for, $6 a pound, $5 a pound. Yeah. So why are they going to, wow. Ouch. But I mean, so why are they gonna pay, okay, my small single location restaurants are gonna pay my price. But if I was to go, say I was gonna go to Chili's and I was gonna go pitch Chili's to put my oyster mushrooms in every restaurant nationwide. Well, there's no way that my farm, even if I was, 50,000 square feet, whatever, magically I'm able to produce that volume of oyster mushrooms. It would never work for me to be able to do that for Chili's because the oysters would not last getting from my facility to every store in the country.
Right.
So for things to really hit mainstream to the level of a Button, a Portobello, a Cremini, we have to have regional growers that are of a significant enough scale to handle that volume. I mean, when you start thinking about, the big agaricus farm in Texas, Kitchen Pride, is actually one of the smaller agaricus farms nationwide. And they're producing on the order of 125,000 pounds of agaricus a week. And so to put that in perspective, they're one of the smaller agaricus farms nationwide.
Well, yeah, so Monterey, there's literally a town in Tennessee called Monterey, Tennessee, because of Monterey, the mushroom farm. It's just on the other side of Knoxville, and I just talked to somebody up there recently, and they're doing, I think, 650,000 pounds a week. Like, just mind-blowingly huge.
So until the specialty mushroom industry, and I'm lumping oysters in with specialty, because at this point, and that's the other thing, is that cultivation techniques are going to have to change.
Yep.
we're never going to be able to get oyster production or any of the other mushrooms to the scale and volume of the agaricus industry until we can figure out how to grow oyster mushrooms consistently and reliably without using bags.
Right.
Because even with a bagging machine or with bottles or whatever, to individually create bags or units and then fruit those out and this and that, it's not scalable. So until we can get, like the agaricus industry, the 30-foot wide or the 8-foot wide by 50-foot long, 6-inch deep trays of substrate where we're going to grow mushrooms out of that, until we can get that for oysters, we're not going to be able to scale it to that level of consistency.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I see Wind River, the Wind River mushroom farm. I remember when they first started, that was their plan, was to do bed agriculture of these gourmet type mushrooms. So they were doing
Wind River was John Holiday, right?
So Wind River was John Holiday, Joey Schlegel, and then not TR at first. They actually brought TR in because Joey knew him. The farm was in trouble because of Neurospora, really. And at TR's at that time, they had that massive flood out where TR was, and his operation was under like 4 feet of water. So while TR's op was getting either while they were waiting for the waters to go down or for the clean out to happen or build back or whatever, Joey Schlegel was just like, dude, TR, I know you know your shit. Can you come up here and help me figure this stuff out? So TR went up there to help him troubleshoot. And they did eventually get to a very profitable system, but they brought it back to an agaricus farm to make it profitable. And one of the problems was they were trying to do open bed agriculture of basically the master's mix mushrooms, like gourmet stuff. But the problem was Neurospora loves soy. And my understanding was soy was their supplement. And so it was ravaging rooms, man. Like there are pictures, in the backstage. I'm probably not allowed to show that kind of stuff off CMGM, but of just 100-foot beds is what it looks like, just covered in Neurospora. That is where largely everyone's terror, because that's where everyone's terror of Neurospora comes from. Was from these guys watching from afar as Joey Schlegel and TR were literally going through with steam guns. Just steaming huge rooms trying to combat this stuff. It was in the ducting. It was everywhere. And bags, I actually don't have a problem with Neurospora that bad. We get rid of it really quick, and in part because we've seen what it did to his farm. But man, there's some badass photos somewhere of TR steaming a room. I'd like to be able to show those because it makes TR look like a total. Not that TR needs help looking like a badass, but it's total badass pictures of TR. But that's where a lot of the Neurospora fear comes from, is that people told this stuff is scary, but in bags and the compartmentalized bags, it's not so bad. But we got to figure out a solution to that if we're ever going to do basically commodity agriculture of specialty mushrooms. And I don't know the answer.
At this point, I don't know if there is an answer, but it's. Right. One thing is for sure, there is. Jordan and I believe that the perfect substrate has not yet been found for mushrooms. Everybody loves Master's Mix, and that's what we grow off of. It is probably the best substrate that's out there today across the board. But what we firmly believe is that species A. Hold on, let me finish. No, that species A will do better off this recipe. Species B will do better off this. C, D, so on and so forth. And similar to with our blue oysters and our elm oysters, we cut a single slash and let it fruit out of that. With our Italian oysters, we do a big X. With our golden oysters, we do a box, but we let the top flap up and down on it. Okay. With lion's mane, we do this. With black pearl, we do something else. So we've found a way to fruit each of our mushrooms that get us a good yield. We have a technique for chestnuts, right now, and off of a 12-pound bag, I'm getting a 3-pound average, and I've gotten as high as 3.7 pounds on a first flush. And on any bag that hasn't contaminated out or had a particular issue to it, I haven't had a yield less than 2.5 pounds on chestnut since we started doing this new method. And they're consistent. I can put them in my fruiting room and I can harvest them in 14 days. Done. Period. Like clockwork. It's beautiful. And one of the things that we want to do once we get everything running a little bit more on rails is we want to start looking at modifying recipes for different things. Our maitake has a particular recipe that we use. Everything else is pretty much just straight master's mix, though we've modified it a little bit. I've watched a lot of other people and I've listened to a lot of conversations that talk about alfalfa or wheat bran or some of the other supplements that are out there, and they all work great. And I'm not saying that soy is the end-all be-all. I'm definitely not. We're in a place where we can get soybean hulls real easily and at a real good price. So it works for us. But also, given the fact that I've got next to no space for dry storage, I can't really afford to have, 6 different pallets of supplement along with 2 pallets of hardwood. So for me, we'll probably stick with soy, but we'll modify recipes ultimately and maybe add a little bit of extra supplement for certain species. But ultimately, I think we're going to find out that, oysters will do better on this substrate, and maitake is going to do really good on this substrate, and chestnuts are going to do better on this, and lion's mane is going to need to do this, and, co-contaminate it with this thing,
Right.
Take your liquid syringe of this and inject it into the bag when you're ready to fruit, and your yields will go up. And we're just going to figure that out. I learned something, speaking of contaminants, this just popped in my head. I learned something from a friend at Farmer's Market who grows lavender. He inoculates his lavender fields with trichoderma. He fertilizes his fields with trichoderma. And I'm like, I'll grow all the trichoderma you want. You want every green bag I grow? Sure. You haul them away, I won't even charge you more than cost.
So I'd actually heard about this, and a buddy of mine runs a tree care business, and he was like, give me a liquid inoculant I can use. He's like, and I can sell it all day. And I was like, okay. So we are doing trials right now, but the way I'm doing it right now is I'm going out into forests, because the way I look at it is he's treating people's trees in the city. These city trees have never seen a healthy forest soil. So now I am going to forests, and I'm scraping down to a root, and then doing root scrapings into containers, and then taking them back in the lab and doing swabs, and then sampling out the organisms that come off those. And now we're going to be doing trials on those. And it's cool because, man, like, you see a huge amount of biodiversity. I've never seen so many colors on a plate. It's crazy. It's a little scary. But at the same time, like, I started looking into it, and I remember reading something about people using trichoderma. The trichoderma we have in our bags is typically Trichoderma aggressivum, because it grows, because it's such a pain for commercial mushroom growers that they literally gave it the name aggressive. Because, and the type they put on like crop fields and stuff, I can't remember now what it is. It's Trichoderma or something else. And I was just like, dang. So I started looking it up, and now all of these commercial companies that have been doing this, they're creating hybrids of different types of Trichoderma species that they're using as the inoculant, because each hybrid they create is a proprietary hybrid. And now no one else can sell it but that one company. Right. And so I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out. So we're gonna do like basically a blast of polyculture in liquid, and then I've got a bunch of trees potted up, and we're gonna start doing tests where these trees get this inoculum, these trees get this one, these get these, and then we'll have a control group that has nothing, and just see if there's other species that will help protect. I assume that there are, because the whole idea with trichoderma is that it fertilizes the field somewhat because it makes certain things more bioavailable to the plants. But the real reason that they use it on crops a lot of times is that it doesn't hurt plants, and it takes up all the room that a lot of harmful fungi would take up. And trichoderma doesn't like other fungus most of the time. Right, as you know. Yeah. And so it actually allows for basically you're inoculating with something that will fight other fungus for you. And it's a beautiful little system.
All right, so contamination question. Okay. We're seeing a new one in some of our bags. It's a bright yellow. I mean, it looks like a slime mold. Like, color-wise, it looks like that yellow slime mold, but I know it's not a slime mold. I know it's not that, but it's bright yellow. And I've not seen it before the last, 3 weeks.
Is it kind of fuzzy?
No, I mean it's growing on the block against the bag, so it looks like a hyphae patch. It just it's not up on the top of the block, so I can't see what it looks like when it's not compressed.
Okay, yeah. So I think that I know what you're talking about, and when I plated it out, it grows really fuzzy. And what's interesting is that yellow is just on the tips of the hyphae. And what you're seeing is it's like growing in real thick and then lacing together and makes this like yellow patch. And I think that I saw that in the bag and cut open, and then swabbed. And like I said, on the plate it was fuzzy, but on the bag it just looked like kind of a shiny yellow patch.
Yellow blotch.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it is, but it's whatever it is. It looks like a mold. And this is kind of the problem I'm having with this series is I don't know how to identify molds. It's a completely different skill set. And so I'm hoping to make friends with someone who knows a lot about mold because, and that's something I've been trying to do with the MossBack Syndicate anyways, where the Commercial Mushroom Growers Network was a lot more about bringing in commercial growers. I want the MossBack Syndicate to be made up of people from as many different backgrounds as possible. And it's a little hard to balance bringing in people who are serious about mushroom growing from a wide array of backgrounds, and so we're trying. The Discord is becoming. It's one of those things where we're trying to find that balance. Like, how do you balance people coming in and people taking it seriously and people not, that kind of thing. But so far, we've been able to keep it pretty serious. And we've got now that you're in here, man, you'll see there's a whole group of people in here that it kicks some serious ass because we've got guys like Adam Bolton, who's a plant geneticist, in here. Ben Dooling, who was on here last week, who comes from more dude knows how to write a grant and do a pitch like crazy, And so we're actually getting a group together to do some group grant writings, and I've told him about experimentations, and Adam's got that skill set, man. Here he knows how to. Adam and Ben Dooling, they have that skill set where they know how to do experimentation. They come from a scientific background. There's even more people like HVAC guys we've got in here, welders and all kinds of stuff, and that's my dream, is to see that kind of stuff going. I just need to find some mold guys. Give me some mold and bacteriologists, and right?
If I had one to recommend, I would totally. But I mean, you want to identify fish, reptiles? I can point you to a half dozen people, but mold,
that'll come in handy later as well.
Yeah. I got a phytoplankton guy, a zooplankton guy, but not mold.
Yeah, actually, I've started up a small algae farm here I'm working with. So, oh crap, what's his name from Algae Research Supply? I can't remember his name all of a sudden, but I've talked to him because I saw William Padilla Brown is growing out spirulina a lot, which is a cyanobacteria, I guess, algae.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know a lot of people use it for human consumption, but my guess is, it doesn't taste good. I've tried it. It does not taste good. And I don't see a good reason to use it for human consumption if, let's say it's got a high protein content, it grows in a high pH. People already put lime in their blocks. I mean, I don't, but people already do this. So if you're doing a high pH, you hydrate, let's say that you just happen to hydrate your pellets with your straw or wood pellets with a lot of high protein, high pH spirulina, then maybe you've got a really good supplement to use right there. And now you've got a supplement that grows really fast, is not bad for the environment, isn't taking up any field crop space, and could just be grown and you can even just use the water to hydrate it. You don't even have to worry about straining it out to harvest it. And now you've got this this nice little system. So he's like, I told this guy about it, and he's like, oh, shoot. I've heard about people, growing it alongside mushrooms to put oxygen into their mushroom grow rooms. But he's like, I've not heard of anybody using it as a feedstock. And I'm like, yeah, I want to use it as a feedstock. I want to see, because William Padilla Brown's got me sold, right? It reproduces really fast. Algae is really good at reproducing. So what if we can put that into a block and grow mushrooms off of it and not even have to buy soy? All you have to do is some cheap water and minerals. So the phytoplankton guy interests me as well, though, because I am growing I'm growing cocoa pods here and all kinds of stuff.
Right on. Yeah, there's 4 or 5 different types of algae that are pretty commonly cultivated. We didn't do that in my program at the community college. That was the one down the hall, so I didn't work real closely with that. But when I was at A&M, we did, for our aquaculture program, we actually raised 3 different types of algae to feed to phytoplankton, or to feed the zooplankton, that were then used to feed the fish fry that we were actually cultivating. So we were actually growing algae to grow rotifers and several other types of zooplankton, and then we'd feed the zooplankton to the fish. So I've got a little bit of experience growing chlorella and astaxanthin.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's the red orange one. But spirulina is one that I've not worked with myself, but I'm gonna start playing around with it. But when you eat it fresh, yes, the taste is horrible. When it's dried and powdered, it has almost no flavor to it. Okay. And so most people that I know, most of the farms that I know that grow spirulina, they dry it and they'll powder it up, and that's how they sell it.
That I've only ever had it fresh, so that must have been because you're right. It's so gross fresh. Oh, it's so terrible. I've got chlorella vulgaris going right now, and I've got the spirulina. I've got a bunch of hair algae that I'm sampling out right now, and I'm trying to get to grow in clean culture in liquid master jars. And that's so basically what I've done is I had to take the airport lid like we normally do, syringe filter, and the self-healing injector port, but now we're doing 2 syringe filters so I can pump in air constantly to get it to bubble. And just basically doing a hydroponic nutrient mix to grow the algae with, and it's working out pretty well. But duckweed was another one that I've taken a look at. It's high protein. I know, not for people food, but it is called aquarium herpes for a very good reason, which means it is great as a feedstock because it grows everywhere. We have to we come out here, we scoop it off our fish tanks every other day, and I was like, okay, so if I can do some pools outside, then bam, I can just harvest that stuff. Maybe I'll try that as a mushroom feedstock, see how that works.
Yeah, duckweed is the bane of my existence. It got brought into my aquaponic farm, and once it comes in, duckweed and snails. Once they come in, you will never, ever, ever get rid of them, and it's just horrible. Now, duckweed is one of those that if you grow it and you wash it clean and then you dry it, it is an incredible food source, and it is fully edible by humans. It is a absolutely great food source. The problem is that every nutritional analysis you're going to read where it says it's 78% protein and all of this and such, that's dry weight.
Right.
When it's 1 pound of duckweed, fresh, wet, will dry down to 2.5 ounces.
Right.
It becomes nothing. So it's one of those, if you let it dry out and you're growing tons of it, it works real well. And it's stupid easy to cultivate. All you need to do is get a little kiddie wading pool.
Right.
And you fill it with nutrient water and you put a handful of duckweed in it. duckweed will replicate itself about every 28 to 30 hours. So just about once a day, it replicates. So what you do is you let it grow, and then over the course of the week, that handful is going to fill the surface of that kiddie pool. So then once a week, you come in and you remove about 75% of it. And then the next week, and then you top off the water and you just let it sit there. And it's stupid easy to grow. Duckweed actually, it will grow faster when there's no current. So it likes still stagnant water. You put it in a system that has, water motion, that has current, that has ripples, that spins it around, it will grow slower. So it'll take about 2 to 3 days to replicate it, which not a bad thing if you're trying to get rid of it, but if you're growing it for volume, then yeah, you just grow it in a kiddie pool. It's stupid simple.
It's interesting to me how certain water plants, like, I guess I'm just used to thinking in terms of like terrestrial plants, like they like acidic soil, they like whatever, and I've never given much thought to aquatic plants starting to start getting into the aquaponics, like the water spinach, the King Kong or whatever, the edible morning glory, that stuff likes really boggy situations. So when I make my trays, I make them really boggy, like really thick mud, and but the like watercress likes it moving. So when I'm doing watercress, I'm like, I've got to keep that water just going constantly. And so it's interesting to have these little systems where I've got to speed up the water and slow it down. So actually what I've started doing is watercress right at the inlet of the water, and then the watercress slows all that water down, and then the water spinach gets that slow water. But duckweed, I've noticed it's impossible to keep it growing anywhere near the watercress or anywhere where the water's splashing or moving. Almost like it doesn't like water on top of it. But it's I feel like there's got to be, with the speed with which aquatic plants grow, there's got to be a lot of potential there for like mushroom feedstocks or anything like that. Like maybe not on a national level yet, but no one's also released any research on it yet. So
yeah. That's very true. I mean, there's like we were saying before, I don't think the best mushroom substrate has been found yet. I think there's substrates that work really good across the board, which is why everybody uses them, because they're simple, they're easy, and they're effective, and they're consistent.
Yeah.
And a lot of people right now, and rightfully so, I mean, we're there for the same part as well, but we're in business, and we can only afford to experiment so much.
Right.
We have clients, we have expectations, we have to be able to meet client orders and such. So, I'd love to experiment with mushroom bags at a pH of 4, pH of 5, pH of 6. Go the whole range all the way up. I'd love to experiment with, if we're just talking master's mix, let's go from 100% hardwood and 0 soy, and let's go by 5% increments and go all the way up to 100% soy and no hardwood, and let's see, let's do a 10-bag batch of each one and see where it performs the best. I'd love to do those experiments, but I don't have time. I don't have space. I don't have the resources.
I completely feel you, man. Because like we had decided at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of about halfway through last year, I guess, that we were going to start tracking every strain and their weights, right? And so I've got a mountain of paperwork of just all the data where we wrote down all the weights for the strains. And every single block, like, okay, this block flushed once, and then on its second flush it produced this much, and then we threw it away, right? And it's like, I still don't have that entered into spreadsheets because I don't have the time. Like, and especially like here recently, I've been trying to make sure that I don't want to have a heart attack at 39 like my father, So I'm trying to take some time off. I'm 35 now, like that's pretty close. So like I take some time off, and I'm like, shit, I really should be entering those numbers, but you're right. Like you gotta make money first. You bring employees in to do production, and you think you're gonna do this experimentation, but you're just doing the next stage of the higher level production, and it is hard to get into all this research. I really want to see more research done, and that's one of the reasons why I like the YouTube channel, because it it does allow me to kind of profit off of the research side a little bit because I get to do like if I'm going to try something and even if it fails, I get at least a video out of it, like at least a piece of content. But that only goes so far, Like the experimentation can be expensive. It can be real expensive.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I don't know. Unless you've got other questions, does anybody in the chat have any questions? Have any of those
man. So I did see somebody was saying that. Let's see. They said, how much electricity are you guys using per month, and do you offset with solar power? I don't actually know my electrical usage off the top of my head. Do you?
I know what I pay in electricity, but I don't know how many kilowatts I'm using.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at too. So, what you mind sharing that information?
Oh yeah, we're in a business park, and technically our warehouse is 2 warehouses that they tore out the center wall. So we actually have 2 electric bills because they set 1 meter for this space, and then they couldn't. It's a 125 amp service, and they couldn't up the size of the panel because the wires or whatever. So there's like, well, we'll just set you a new panel and set a new meter. I'm like, okay, so I still get 1 bill, right? No, you'll get 2. Okay, fine. So all told, I think we're paying right around $800 a month.
Yeah.
But we have no gas, so all of our ACs are electric. Our lights are, all of that. Humidifier is electric. We run the sterilizer twice a week. So, it's a fair bit. And all told, we've probably got, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've probably got about 8 tons of AC on running right now that, this time of year, they're running 24/7. We've got another 2.5 ton mini split coming. It should be here Friday. So that's going to go into colonization. So that'll give us 5 tons of AC in colonization, which hopefully will keep our colonization room under 80 degrees. We've got 1,400 bags in there, so it sucks.
I would actually really like to know how much BTUs a mushroom bag puts off. Because they'll cook. Does somebody know the answer?
The research we've found has said generally 1 BTU per hour. So right about.
That's actually relatively impressive. That's an impressive amount of heat. Which I can tell you that it's an impressive amount of heat just walking by my incubation room because it's like a wall of heat coming out. Yeah,
and if you stack your bags too close together and then you pull them apart and you put your hand on that, it's physically warm to the touch. And we unfortunately we designed our racks to fit 30 bags when they were touching. And so now we're trying to space them out, and so we're taking up more space, and we're playing Tetris every week, and we're moving bags around because we've got, Maitake takes, 6 to 8 weeks to colonize, and Chestnut takes 6 to 7 weeks, and Black Pearl takes 3 weeks, and these take 2 weeks, and so it's, we're playing Tetris around because we're also. Well, we were growing 30 of these, but now we're doing 15. And then we're doing 20 of these, but now we've bumped up to 30. And then we were doing 30 of these, and now we do 40. And, it's how far can you stretch that spawn bag? And it's all this stuff. But we're playing Tetris, and it's working. But, yeah, our colonization room is full to the gills right now.
Yeah, today we just did what we call the summer shuffle, which is where you go, wintertime, we pack all of our blocks as close together as possible. Summertime comes, we start spreading everything out. And so today was the day, we didn't do lab, normally Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do lab production and then block production. No production today. It was all summer shuffle, bag planting in the grow room, cleaning up around here, reorganizing everything. That was what we did all day. So no money making work, just moving stuff around to save money. But so our electric bill here, I think which hopefully it'll be better this year because we're moving away from window ACs and into like we're getting our 5-ton unit installed next week for the grow rooms. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. Oh, this will be the first year that I'm going into summer at least relatively prepared. Oh, it's so amazing. I hope, right? Yeah, I hope. I'll be praying for sure. But like we've got an HRV that we're putting in with it this year as well. Heat recovery ventilation or whatever. Yeah. And it was a big unit built for this 5-ton unit. Like we bought it off a farm in Atlanta for super cheap. So we're gonna have that installed, and then hopefully I think we got a 2.5-ton unit that we're gonna be installing for incubation. And then, but incubation and grow will still be connected, so they'll still be sharing. There'll be like 7.5 tons shared between incubation and 3 grow rooms. I know, right? It's. I don't know how it's going to happen. Ben's covering all that stuff. I don't know nothing. So the good news is that we'll have all of that stuff installed. So I'm hoping it'll be more efficient than this. But right now, and please remember that we've got like the cheapest electricity in the country compared to everybody else because of all the dams. So we're like, I think it was $600 is what it is around in August to try to air condition everything, and it's about $600 a month. I think our average rate's about 6 cents a kilowatt. So, yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, so where we are in the business park, the entire business park is cinder block building with a metal roof. Now, they say I've got 6 inches of insulation from the inside of my space to the roof itself. When the guys installed the mini split, they said it was actually closer to about 4 inches. So that kind of sucks. But I've got 2 10-foot roll-up doors that are south-facing. And so the entire front of my warehouse is south-facing. And it's a black asphalt in front of my space. And I'm right in the middle of the Metroplex. So I've got the heat island effect from the Metroplex. So it absolutely... It is no joke to say that when it's 100 degrees outside, it's 130 inside our space if you're in the warehouse itself. One of the things, and we just signed another 2-year lease, so we're going to be here at least another 18 months, since we're halfway through the year. So I would really love to spend the money to get 4 inches of closed cell foam, like spray foamed across the roof, across the south wall, and just foam that up, because that alone would eliminate a lot of just the ambient heat buildup that I have in my space. But we're also upgrading, like you were saying, we're getting rid of the window units and we're installing mini splits as we can afford them. Got him that time. But so like we've finally got all the window units off of colonization, and we're going to install that second mini split in there. So that one will be able to stay down. And that colonization was the first room we built. So we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were getting into. So it's the poorest insulated room as well. So that's why we're putting a lot more cooling on that room. Yeah. But we've got 2 window unit ACs on our oyster room that are cooling that. And so we're going to replace that with a mini split. But, like I was saying earlier, we built our second fruiting room out of those walk-in panels. And I've got 1.5 tons of AC on that room. It's bigger than my oyster room. And it's keeping it at 65 with no problems. So I'm sold. Next time I build out a farm, my lab, my colonization, my fruiting rooms, my walk-in, everything's going to be made out of walk-in cooler panels because they're super insulated, and it's going to reduce the operational cost significantly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, man, I can. Oh, it helps to unmute myself. Yeah, like I can see that, man. It's I'm excited. Like the HRV, I've never played with, but I've seen. So Ben Dooling was the one that really sold me on it because he and I were just chatting on Discord one night, and he was at his farm, and he was like, it's negative something outside, right? Because they were going. It was snowing, and he's up in Montana, Wyoming, Montana. He's in Bozeman. He says Montana. It doesn't matter. That's both cold, but he's in Bozeman. But it is it was like negative something outside, I think, and then he brought it inside, and he's like, "Look, the air before it hits my air treatment, like what it's coming in as through the HRV, was like." I think he was trying to keep his room at like 67, and it was coming in at 66. So the air that he was pulling directly from outside, going through his HRV, was only losing 1 degree of temperature. And I was like, are you kidding me? So does it work that well in heat? Like, am I going to be able to recover that much? Because that's my concern is heat. Like, wintertime, we don't even heat anything to grow. Like, the mushrooms generate all the heat they need to grow just fine here in the wintertime, unless it's real, like, bad cold snap or something. But like I was like, man, if I can just use that HRV and just like I could basically run my entire op on a window unit. I'm not going to because that just seems like I'm asking for it, but it definitely seems like it could work. So I mean, I get you there, especially on the efficiencies and stuff. And let's see, we had a couple other questions too, like do you guys ever boost your substrate pH to help fend off trike? I don't ever do anything like that. You know.
No, we don't either. We've just started looking into some of the research about pH on the blocks and such, and for different species. No, we haven't really done anything. We did one kind of halfway attempt at looking at boosting the pH on a couple of our blocks with lime. Trying to get it up to like a 9.5, 10, and to be honest, I don't even know where those blocks are right now. I have no idea how they're doing. We did that a couple weeks ago, so they're probably in colonization somewhere.
Yeah, I had that happen to me. I did some liquid culture blocks, like liquid culture directly to the goat mix and to the fruiting blocks, and forgot to put them in the fruiting room and people specifically asked me to do an update. And so it took me forever to find where those blocks were, and they were fruiting all on the top. And then I finally put them in the grow room, and they grew great. Like, we got really nice harvest off of them. But it was definitely one of those, like, oh, shit, I did an experiment and then lost it. So I've been there plenty of times. You
got any other questions? There was one about chestnuts, wasn't there?
I'm trying to find some questions that they're kind of mixed in there. I see. Do you? Speaking of, while I'm looking, do you know where that whole thing with like adding lime to your blocks came from? Like, where? I don't even know where that came from. It's just always been around. I don't have any
idea where it came from. I think it honestly came from people doing the cold pasteurization of straw with lime. And that it worked for that, so let's add lime to other stuff. I don't know. I've not seen anything in the research that I've read, and granted I haven't read a huge amount, but I've not seen anything in the research I've read that says mushrooms particularly prefer one pH over another. You know, I haven't really seen any of that.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of what I've run into as well. So I found the chestnut one, and I found another one that said, how do you deal with the contamination on the production? And I'm not sure if they mean like production blocks or what. Like, but do you want to go over how you guys handle contamination?
To be honest, the way we do it is pretty simple. If you see any color other than white, you pretty much throw it out. I mean, we've seen that certain things can fight through trike and such.
Right.
And so sometimes we'll leave trike in there, but usually only on the super aggressive species like oysters or lion's mane. But for some odd reason, our Piopino strain, our poplar strain, is really not good at fighting trike. It's
which strain is that?
Right now, I think we're using the one that Cap and Stem has right now.
Oh, okay. I think they get that one from what is it? The European company. Is that Mycopia?
No, I honestly don't know.
That's fine. I'll ask Eric.
Our pipino strain came from Captain's Town, but we've lost a couple of entire batches to trike, which we're upgrading our flow hoods and we're doing all those things that, so hopefully that's going to stop. But so pretty much if it's green, we'll throw it out. If it's yellow or orange, if it's lipstick mold, or if it's orange neurospore and such, those are absolute. Just instantly drop what you're doing and walk it to the dumpster. It doesn't go in the horse trailer outside for compost. It's on the other side of the business park. So
yeah, it's basically the way we do it too. Is just if in doubt, throw it out and make sure you don't give it a breeding ground.
Yeah. I mean, we've upped our cleaning schedule now that so our oyster room will hold 480 blocks and we're at capacity. And we've upped our cleaning schedule, so we do a mini clean every day, 7 days a week, and we pull every block out of there and scrub the room down and oxine it and such twice a month. And every time we pull blocks out, we load by sections. So every time we pull blocks out, that section gets scrubbed and wiped down with isopropyl and then sprayed with oxine. So we've upped our cleaning schedule significantly. Mm-hmm. And we pressure wash everything and all of this and such. And it just that's cut down on our contamination in the fruiting rooms significantly.
Yeah.
I never would have thought I would clean this much before I started mushroom farm. Never in my life. But anybody who's grown mushrooms, you're laughing. I know you're doing the same thing. Well, you're probably not anymore. You got more employees than I do.
Well, I don't have very many more employees than you do. I do have more, but not much. Like maybe one or two. But no, we still clean a lot. Like that's. I actually I was laughing because I put an ad up on Indeed.com, and did you see it? You saw that, did you? I think I put in there like if slimes and stuff, smells and stuff like that bother you, don't get this job. I think I said something about like if cleaning bothers you, don't want this job or something. I can't even remember what all, but it was just like, yeah, I'm just like, I know that the mushrooms seem romantic, but you really don't get to spend that much time looking at the mushrooms. You spend a lot more time cleaning up after them, just constantly cleaning. And so that's actually when go ahead.
I was going to say that we've had a couple of employees that have come in, worked for a little while, and then left for various reasons. We had one that came in, and he started out, he was a good kid, he was a hard worker, he was a little goofy, but he loved mushrooms. Like, loved mushrooms. And in retrospect, looking back, that was a warning sign. Because he loved mushrooms, and he was so excited to work at a mushroom farm, and he loved all of this. And to make a long story endless, he left for lunch one day and never came back. And yeah.
It's funny because we were sitting in an interview with a new prospective employee, and as they were sitting there, they said something about, I said, well, do you think you're going to be okay working here? And they were like, yeah, man, this, like, working with mushrooms, man, it's like my dream job. And Ben was in the interview with me, and I always love bringing Ben in with me because Ben, he will say what he's thinking. And so Ben went, that's a red flag. And I was like, oh shit. And this guy was like, what? And Ben's like, yeah, like if you loved money, I would want to hire you because, you want to work for money. But like, if you're working because you love mushrooms, he's like, that just means I want to rehire somebody in like a week or two. Like, it's just, I don't know. But you're right. Like, that is a thing. It's a trend I have noticed. Like, if you love mushrooms, you're not necessarily going to want to keep working here forever. Because what happens when the love subsides? Because I love mushrooms, but I learned to hate them for a while, and then I learned to re-love them again.
I'm still in phase 2 right now. I'm kind of in that love-hate relationship where I love what they can do for me, but I really kind of despise what they need from me. And so that's kind of where I am right now.
Well, and that's what it was for me, was that it wasn't that I hated mushrooms. It's that I had made myself very available on Facebook. I had made myself very available by phone. I had made myself very available by email and on YouTube and on everything else. And I burned out, and it got to the point where the phone would ring, and Samantha would see me, like, I'd be like, oh my God, not another phone call. You know, like, it was almost like I was getting hit by something. And I just got so burned out that I was like, I hate mushrooms. I hate everything about mushrooms. I don't want anything to do with mushrooms. I don't want to talk about mushrooms. I don't want to see them, smell them, anything. And I despise that my income comes off mushrooms. But then it was like, after I took some time off, then you're like, oh, I love mushrooms again. They provide for my home. They put food on my kid's table. Like, mushrooms are everything. They're one, like, it just, you'll get there. It just takes time. Like, you have to enjoy the rewards.
Yeah, I also need to get more than 2 days off every 2 weeks. So
yes, but you'll get there. Like, and that's another. Like, I don't know why. Like, I've got to figure out what it is about my farm that allows me to take so much time off. Because a lot of other guys don't ever get as much time. I think you guys are working too hard somehow.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you in the slightest on that. But I mean, and see, like, that's the thing is, like, I look at you, and yeah, you do the fresh fruiting, you do blocks, you do LCs, you do plates, you know, you do all this lab work. You also run the YouTube channel and the Discord and all of this and such, and you do your video editing and everything else that you do on the side. And I'm sitting over here, I'm like, what the hell? I'm just doing my mushroom farm. And I mean, yeah, I do tinctures and I do salts, but I'm just doing the mushroom farm, and I'm working 95 hours a week and driving 16 hours a week on top of that. I mean, what the hell am I doing wrong?
I don't know, man. I think I need to just go down there and spend a week with you and be like, that's unnecessary, and that's unnecessary.
I tell you what, let me come spend a week with you first and see how to do it, and then you come over here for a week.
That sounds good to me, man. We should, like, this should just become a thing. We should all just start, like, seeing each other's farms more often. Especially guys who've been in it for a few years. Like, there's got to be some way you can make my life easier somehow.
Yeah, and it's eyeballs. You know, it's like TR actually was just in town, and he came by on earlier this week, and
oh yeah, so he stopped in at the farmers market.
Yeah, well, and actually, he shot a quick video when he was here, so he's editing that. Apparently, Jordan made a comment that had to be edited out. He swore or something. I don't know, but anyway, so it'll be up on TR's channel here in a little bit. But I mean, he just walking around was like, why do you do it like that? What's the purpose? What's the value? And we're like, well, that's just what we've always done. And he was like, well, why don't you consider doing it like this? And Jordan and I looked at each other and went, yeah, that would work. So it's just eyeballs, because you get tunnel vision because you do this because you've always done it this way. And that's just, there was a perfectly valid, justifiable reason why you did it that way, and you just kept doing it that way. And
even when it was no longer justifiable. Yeah, like
right.
Ben Erickson does that to me all the time, man. He'll come through the op every now and then and be like, why is he doing it that? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, you need to figure out why, and then either stop it or keep doing it. And I was like, that's a good point. I don't know why he's doing that. Maybe we can skip that step. So, well, and it's like, you know, that's why we stopped mixing substrate, when we just dumped pellets and then our pellets and water and then cooked it. Ben literally came through and he's like, why are you mixing that? Aren't we going to mix it when we put spawn in? And I'm like, yeah, we are going to mix it when we put spawn in. And he was like, you know what else? Mushrooms are a vast food transportation network. Like, when they're in nature, they don't find uniform food sources. They have to transport those nutrients back and forth. Why am I working so hard when the mushrooms can do all the work for me? I think I'm going to stop pre-mixing everything.
So thank you. So we did I won't say it was an experiment, but we have anecdotal evidence to suggest. Basically, we found a couple blocks that we didn't shake, and the yield we got off those compared to the blocks that we did shake. Now, same amount of substrate, same recipe, same cook, they were same batch. That just, these ones didn't get shaken. They yielded significantly less. So it was odd, And like I said, it was anecdotal.
The ones that you did shake or did not shake?
Did not shake. The ones that we did not shake that were stratified, those yielded a lot less than the ones that were shaken. So once again, it's the recipe is there, the nutrient is there, but my thought, my opinion is that by mixing it fully and making it as easy as possible for the mycelium to feed on, then we get the best value and we get the best growth from it. So it doesn't have to expend that energy to transport the nutrients to the mycelial mass, but it's right there. So all of that energy can then be transferred directly into the fruiting body for a bigger yield.
So when you say stratified, are you guys doing pellets and doing the dry bagging? Okay. So when that works, are you guys doing like is it not all dumping together? Is it not being mixed in by the water or?
Yeah. How we mix bags? We have 2 bins beside us,
okay.
And we scoop out of that onto one scale and scoop out of the other onto the other scale, and we weigh out the exact amounts, and then we manually pour it in for every bag.
Okay.
So we never graduated to the stage of having a dry bagger, either a Thor or like Brad's Odin or Myers's pneumatic bag. We never graduated to one of those, so we still mix it, measure it out by hand, and mix it by hand. And we're doing 320 bags a week.
So that's where all your work is, man. That's where all your work is.
Before you say anything, yes, we know that is something that we need to eliminate. Yes, we know. Which is exactly what we told TR when we showed him how we make bags, because he about fell on the ground. He was laughing so hard. Now that being said, we are going to skip the dry bagger stage and likely go straight to a batch mixer. So we finally saved up enough money, and that's the plan right now. TR gave us some things to chew on and think about, so we're going to kind of go back and forth and figure out a few things, but we are not going to be measuring by hand and bagging up for much longer.
That's good. That makes me very happy because, that's definitely where all your work is going. We have a water meter. So we made a batch today. We made 155 bags, 2 recipes. We did our master's mix recipe, and then we did our special recipe for one of our species. So we did 155 bags. It took me and one employee 3.5 hours to bag, fold, and load our sterilizer. I'll be honest, man, that is not as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting a much worse time. So for our crew, we can do a 2-man crew using the Thor bagger can do about 150 12-pound bags, including setup and tear down and clean up, about an hour and a half, which is a significant time savings. But at the same time, 3.5 hours, when you're really thinking about it, you're doing 2 different recipes by hand. That's not as much as I was thinking you guys were, what you were going to say. So.
It takes, now when it's 2 employees and Jordan or I are not doing part of it, it takes a lot longer. What we've realized is as we've started writing SOPs and such for our employees, the time that it takes me to do a task is about 20% longer than the time it takes Jordan to do a task. So I'm slower than Jordan is. But the time it takes our employee to do it is about 50% more than it takes me.
Yep.
So if it takes Jordan an hour, it's going to take me an hour and 10-15 minutes. It's going to take our employee 2.25 hours. So we've really had to take that into account when we start leaving lists for our employees, and it's okay, here's 10 things I want you to get done in the next 4 hours. And they're okay, in 4 hours we got the first 2 done.
Right.
So
I've noticed that same trend, and I haven't been able to attribute it to anything yet. I thought experience might be it, because it's okay, well, I've done Man, I counted it up the other day, and I'm hitting close to 100,000 bags by my own hands, like like total over my lifetimes. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now that said, it's slowing way down because I can't tell you the last day I was here for a production day. So I feel I don't know where I'm at now exactly, but I thought, okay, well, when these employees get to a point where they've done maybe 10,000 bags, they'll be the same speed as me or whatever, and it's never quite the same, and I don't know why that is, but like I don't know, is it because Samantha and I are desperate and we're busting our asses? Because I know my guys they bust their ass for me too, like.
Yeah. So my thought on it is it's more that you and Samantha are busting your butts. It's the fact that you are the owners. Jordan and I are the owners. We are absolutely 100% vested in the success of this. So we're always going to have a better attention to detail. We're always going to have that little bit more of an eye towards efficiency and such because we have to do so many more things. If I can save a step, so like making bags is an example. I will adjust the table and such so that I can plant my feet in one place and I will swivel my hips and I'll measure this and set it down, measure this and set it down, and then grab this and pour it in. But I don't move my feet. My employee, I've watched him. I watched him today. He took 4 steps. He moved his feet 4 different times to make one bag. Yeah. And it's not, it sounds trivial. I know it. You're laughing because
no. I'm okay. Yeah.
I was going to say you're laughing because you know how trivial it sounds, but at the same point, you also know exactly what I'm talking about because Okay, so we're making 150 bags. Well, if he's 2 seconds slower on making a bag than I am because of all that pivoting and swivel, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's 2 seconds times 150 bags. But that's just that. But also he's expending more energy. So he's going to be more tired at the end of 150 bags than I am.
Right.
And because of that, because he's moving more, he spills more dust. And, when I do bags, like our other employee has remarked on it, when I'm pouring bags, at the end of the batch, the table is clear. It's clean. There is no spilled substrate. There is no dust. There is no water. When he was done with the batch today, it literally looked like my son was 2 years old again and just smearing food across the table. It was, the stainless steel table was brown.
I've seen that too, like making bags. Like we do, hit the foot pedal, Thor dumps everything in the bag, and then we hand the bag off. But it's always still soupy at that point. So you learn how to set that bag where it doesn't topple and spill everything. And I've noticed that I've got a feel for it, but new people never have that feel for it, And so every time we have a new person come in, their first few times, it always looks like bags vomited all over the place. Like they just spilled their contents.
So quick suggestion for that: go to Walmart and get one of the plastic shoe boxes.
Okay.
But actually take it and screw it down to your table, and they set the bag in that. It'll never topple over again.
I like that. I'm thank you for that. I'm definitely gonna use that.
It's one of those stupid, simple little hacks that like we were saying, when we get so used to doing things a certain way, well, we've always just handed the bag off. You'll get a feel for it. You'll learn how to set it down. Well, put a bucket there, and they don't have to learn.
And that's the thing I'm trying to figure out everything. Like everywhere I go now, I'm like, how do I take all of this knowledge and like muscle memory and then make a system to where they don't need all that knowledge and muscle memory to do? And sometimes it's, like you said, sometimes it's really, really simple, and then sometimes I can't figure it out, and then someone, like you comes around and like, oh yeah, this way, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, this is how I'm going to save, like, my sanity for the next little bit. So I like that. We do have somebody asking about chestnuts, and I know that we've already been on for 3 hours, and I'm starting to fatigue. So I didn't know if you want to talk about chestnuts.
My wife has now called twice, so I think we got to do this question, and then actually, she just texted saying that she forgot I was on the podcast interview tonight, so she's sorry. She'll see me when I get home. Okay, never mind.
Well, that's fine. I am fatiguing, but we'll take a couple questions and then we'll call it good.
Let's do this one more, maybe one after that, and yeah. All right, so chestnuts. What was it?
Basically, just saying. They said, what methods do you guys both use with chestnuts? And I'll talk about my method. I want to hear about yours if you don't mind sharing. And we've got our own way of doing things too. So.
All right, so we use our basic Master's Mix recipe. I'll say that, and I mean. Chestnuts are one of those, there's 50 different strains of blue oyster and gold oyster and this and that and such. Chestnuts, unless you know of a couple, I pretty much only know of like one, maybe 2 different strains. Yeah. So it's a chestnut mushroom is a chestnut mushroom. So it's that. What we've found is the mushrooms will have a better shelf life and they'll fruit bigger if we fruit them in the cold room, but they take forever to grow if they grow in the cold room. And I mean, like when I say forever, I'm meaning like 3.5 to 4 weeks for one bag to fruit out.
Yeah.
Now, granted, this is our room for Maitake and King Trumpet, so it's 58 degrees. So I mean, it's a cold room.
I've seen them like that, and how long they take doing that. And it seems like though. When they grow that slow, there's a higher chance of seeing mold grow on them. Have you seen that?
We didn't do them for very long at that temperature. We have a demand for chestnuts. We have a couple chefs that love them and will buy them every week, so we can't afford to let them grow that slow. So we kind of saw they were growing that slow when we got out, but no, we never really saw a trike issue or a mold issue. Once again, because I think we clean so much that we keep our ambient, mold spore population down pretty low. But no, I mean we've gone through 5 or 6 different methods for fruiting them. From cutting the classic big X, from a single slash, from multiple little X's all over and such, and now we've pretty much settled on a big X. We fruit kind of like you do from the side of the bag. I would love to be able to actually fruit the other way and fruit out the wide side of my bag. My rooms are just, once again, that's something I'll set up for the next room, or the next grow. But and actually, that being said, we're looking at actually removing our fixed shelves like what you have at yours, and going to Metro racks just so for this. That's where we're going now. Of rolling stuff around, it's.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way we're going. Is we've got the second grow room going, and I'm thinking near August, September when it gets really hot here, and the demand for mushrooms goes down naturally as people are going like vacationing and stuff. So what we're thinking is, I'm thinking we're going to rip the guts out of our first grow room, reline it with the white plastic, put up some new LED lights, and then probably just no shelving in it whatsoever, just do all rolling racks.
Yeah, it just, I love the density that I get from the fixed racks, but like we're taking the bag and we are physically moving it from where we make it to load it into the. So we're just because of the way our farm is set up, like we've got a partition here, and on this side is where we make our bags and load them onto a rack, wheel the rack over to here, and then load them into the sterilizer. But from the sterilizer, we then load them into the lab, and we inoculate and do a pre-shake, and then into the colonization room where we do a second shake. They go in the dryer, and then we rack them.
Yep.
But then we take them from there, put them onto a rolling rack, roll them over to the fruiting room, and then load them into the fruiting room. So I mean, we're literally touching those bags 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 times to just get them into fruiting. So I mean, when I talk about I've got excess labor and I've got all this extra like effort that's going into the farm, trust me, I know where it is.
Right.
I just, the next farm we build, we're going to have all rolling racks. They'll probably be custom made, custom welded shelving, so that we can roll them from the sterilizer. We'll roll them into the sterilizer to get cooked. We'll roll them out of the sterilizer into the lab. They'll get inoculated, put on there. We'll have the tumbler and such in the lab. They'll go onto the racks. The racks will get rolled into colonization, and then ultimately it'll get rolled out of colonization and rolled into the fruiting room. And we will touch the bag twice. Once when we set it on the rack, and then once when it gets inoculated. And after that, the only time we touch the bag is to cut it and fruit it out.
Yep.
But that's how we're going to get efficiency. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that here because I'd need 4 times the colonization space. My lab would have to be twice as big. My sterilizer would have to be 4 times as big. We don't have the capability here. But now I know all the things that I didn't know when we first designed this facility out. So the next one, we're going to jump from 2,000 up to 8,000 square feet, and it'll be built out to the way I think it should be, and then I'll make all sorts of new mistakes, and we'll go from there. So that went way off of a tangent from chestnuts. So I want to hear your method.
Sure, and I'll absolutely go over that real quick. I just want to say, I agree with the rolling racks, man, and that's something we've talked about for a little bit. In fact, what I was telling them now is that what I'd like to see is ideally we make the bags, do block production. They go on that shelf, get steamed on that shelf. Already sealed, and then what we do is we just come through and with a cattle vaccine gun and inject them on the shelf, never have to move them, roll them into incubation, then roll them into the grow room. And at that point, the only time is when you're making them and when you're throwing them away, and then you never touch them again. And I've thought about that for a while. In fact, one of the things I was thinking about, which doesn't look like we're going to do here, was to do I wanted to do pallet shelving. And basically just roll everything around on the pallet jack, because one of the big problems with the shelves going into the steamer is that you have to use really expensive casters. Well, a pallet's not expensive. And even if you make an expensive pallet, it's probably not going to be as expensive as replacing expensive casters. So, and then you just got the central piece of equipment, which is either A, a forklift, or B, a pallet jack. You get these little shelves where you do the exact same thing. Basically, you roll that pallet out. We were talking about doing it on the back dock. Roll the pallet out full of blocks that are stacked up on it, ready to be steamed. You lower an insulated steam jacket over it, and then just inject steam. And then you don't have to, you don't even have to worry about unloading it and loading it into your steamer. It literally just gets rolled in to a atmospheric steam sterilizer, whatever, like that. I would love to see somebody solve those issues. There's got to be some way where you can, like you're talking about, not touch it, but once or twice. Now, as far as chestnuts go, one of the things we do is we always let them, the blocks age until they start really turning nice and orange and yellow. They get a lot of metabolite.
How many weeks do you go? We go about 6 to 7 weeks.
That's right, what I'm talking about 6 to 8, something like that. So it kind of depends on the temperature. Wintertime, obviously, they take longer. Let's see. We had an employee, Laura, who's on medical leave right now. She's got some. She's a little teeny tiny little bird lady, and she's got some overuse from the 12-pound bags. So, but she just came out one day. She's like, Andrew, I really want to smack this block. And I was like, why? She's like, I don't know. There's something about these chestnuts. I really just want to smack the hell out of them. I was like, well, why don't we? I tell you what. Why don't you smack the hell out of about half of them, and then the other half leave alone, and put them side by side, and let me see what happens. And then she came and got me, what was it? It's almost 14 days, or not 14, it was about 10 days later, and the chestnuts were pinning like crazy. on the ones that she smacked. They were pinning like, I mean, the other ones were pinning just as well, but like the ones that she like, what we started doing was we take them and we'll put them about chest height and drop them, and we'll let them just really hit the floor hard, and then we shelve them. And what we, instead of doing a square or cutting or anything else, what we started doing is putting them in at an angle to where the top of the block is kind of facing you, and we just let them flush in the sealed bag. And once they start pinning really good, we cut the top just below, basically do a collar. And then whenever they have fully flushed, the caps are starting to open, we take them out, cut the plastic off, just pull the mushrooms off, and then go. And that way the entire top of the block is going. And that increased our yields big time on the chestnuts.
What are you getting for yields doing it that way?
I'd have to look at my numbers, but I mean, we're getting like 3.5 pounds off of our chestnuts pretty regularly. 3.5 pounds is like the upper, like that's, the highest what we're getting. But like, we're getting regularly 3-pound flushes. What's your yield on chestnuts?
2.5 to 3.5 is our average range. I'd say 3 to 3.5 is pretty standard. I've had a couple monsters that were the 3.7, 3.8 range, but yeah, I know I'd love for that to be the norm. But I mean, we've also had some where where they did the stupid shiitake aspect, and we got 4 mushrooms off of a block, and I got 2.5 pounds in 4 chestnuts. A cap that was this big around. But I say that about shiitake. We had a shiitake block the other day. We got 3 shiitake off of it. We got 2.8 pounds off that block in 3 mushrooms. 3.
So I've got a strain of king oysters that I like growing a lot. I don't remember. I think you and I've talked about it before, but it's a king oyster, and it almost always fruits a single mushroom. Like, it's either like 1, maybe 4 mushrooms most. And we cut it and let it grow out of the square instead of top fruiting it or whatever. But I mean, it'll grow it's like my forearm in size. And you're talking about like you get like a 3-pound mushroom. And so when you sell a box, like a 10-pound box is like 3 mushrooms, and it's just 3 giant kings. And the caps, man, I've had caps that are like this big around on them, and I'll take them to the chefs and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, this is what I want all the time," because they'll slice them up, man, and like, no, dude.
No, I'm saying. Oh. I could just imagine the chef saying that to me. And it's like, no, please, I don't want to grow these. I want to grow kings that are like 3.5, 4 inches tall. Perfectly cylindrical. The cap isn't any bigger than the stem. Just that's what I want to grow. That's what my chefs want. Now I've got a couple of chefs that if I had. If I could get them 10 pounds of like 12-inch long, 15-inch long king trumpet mushrooms, they would freaking love it. But, I mean, I also, we sell king trumpets for like 15 a pound, and to walk into a chef and be like, yeah, here's 1 mushroom, it'll be $45.
Right.
I couldn't do that.
Oh man, I would love to just try that. Like, walk in and be like, "Here's your $45 mushroom. It's the size of a baby. You're welcome."
Put a little bonnet on it, wrap it in a swaddle, just hand it off.
Gotcha.
Oh God, no. No, we've stopped growing true kings. We just grow the Shiba Fury and the Black Pearls now, just because they're more consistent for us and they require less work, less labor. Yeah. Scratching the blocks and then letting it recolonize and then cold temps and then it's a pain. So
we haven't had the king that I got. And I actually finally found where I got this king. It's not an original strain of mine or anything. I got it from Field and Forest. Their king oyster strain that they sell in Grain Spawn was that huge one, and it grows these monster flushes on Master's Mix, like with those single mushrooms or whatever. And what we started doing, instead, no scratching, no cold temperatures. It's even warm tolerant. It's not hot. It's not a summertime mushroom, but you're talking like it'll grow well into the spring and well into early fall. But I mean, we just cut a little square about an inch by an inch and get that single mushroom to grow out of it like that. So, and that's like for the longest time, I could not figure out where I got that king oyster strain, and then I was like, oh, I finally figured it out. I found my receipt one time, and I was like, that's where I got it. So I bought it again and then trialed it again side by side with mine, and it worked. So I was like, okay, Field Forest, man, they've actually got some like their pink strain. I actually like their pink strain, even though I don't like pinks. I like growing that one.
Is theirs Dijon-Moore or is it Salmostrius? Because there's two different species of what people call pink oyster. I know Lenny's got an LC for Salmostrius. I guess some people call it the salmon oyster.
See. Okay. It's Jamor. Yeah, and it's I like it because it is like the single sorry, Samantha's getting on to me. My wife, so I probably need to be heading home soon, but what was I saying? Oh, their pink oyster grows the most red I've ever seen. So I've used it as breeding stock for my oysters and stuff, but it is a beautiful red color. Now, it doesn't last on the plate, so the only reason to grow it really is like to make it look pretty in the grow room or for pictures. So it's limited use, but man, it makes for some eye-catching photos or farmers market stuff. So all right, so let's see. I guess that's really all I've got, man. I can feel like I'm kind of tiring out. So
this has been fun, though. I've enjoyed talking to you. So hopefully everybody got something out of me rambling along. So
yeah. Even if they didn't, I did. So
hey, I gave you the bucket tip. So yeah, that worked. That was a good one for you.
That's right, man. I'm going to use them. I'm going to go get some shoe boxes tomorrow. So. Well, Adam, thank you very much for being on. For anybody who's interested in coming to find you, where can they find you? What can they get from you, etc.?
So our website is texasfungus.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We'll have some more social medias and such coming up. But yeah, you can find us there. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're at pretty much all the major farmers markets. We'd love to have you come out and say hi. We can't ship fresh mushrooms, unfortunately, but we've got grow-at-home kits, we've got salts, we've got tinctures. So, yeah. And if nothing else, just leave a comment on the Facebook page or such, and I'll get back to you within a day or two. So, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Adam. Thanks for coming on, and don't forget to save me one of those bags of salt. Don't let everybody order them. Thank you, sir.
I'll send you one of each, Andrew.
That sounds good, man. I appreciate it. All right, Adam. I want you to have a really good night, man, and it was really good chatting with you.